The tale begins with a newfound understanding that a healer's identity is tied to their skills. An ancient tome reveals that a healer dedicates themselves to the community with empathy and commitment. Granny Merlin, an elderly woman, arrives at Leaf's store seeking entry. The backdrop is set in a remote village called Dead End. Two senior figures stroll through the village, passing by a stable. Granny Merlin converses with her male companion, both showing signs of worry. Outside the apothecary, she expresses regret for being a nuisance to the young healer. Inside, Leaf cheerfully comforts her after she mentions her hip pain. He gently advises her that bending will only exacerbate her issues. As he moves through his shop, he reflects on how the body naturally declines with age. With a rosy blush, Leaf inquires if he and Granny Merlin aren't friends. He expresses his gratitude and assures her he will prepare her usual remedy immediately. At his workstation, Lee concentrates on crafting a prescription for a pain reliever. With deft hands, he meticulously combines the medicinal components into a poultice. He hands over the painkiller, mentioning he added a dose for Old Man Arthur. Blushing with pride, Leaf shyly accepts her compliments for his considerate act. A sharp voice suddenly pierces the air, ordering Leaf to cease his actions. A furious blonde woman, Dokna, demands to know how long he plans to keep her waiting. Calling him a fool, she insists he hurry and prepare her dinner. Leaf attempts to explain that he is currently busy with a customer. Dokna responds with incredulous disbelief, her sharp teeth bared. Granny Merlin steps in, asking Dokna if she realizes the time. Dokna brushes off Merlin's apology, shouting that she should have come during business hours. A disheartened Merlin repeatedly apologizes as Dalkuna tells her it's futile. Dokna yells that Leaf's kindness lets the elderly take advantage of him. The tense standoff intensifies as Dokna accuses Lee while pointing at the old woman. She glares at Merlin, demanding to know what she thinks she's doing. Leaf pleads with Dokna, offering to whip up dessert for just a few more minutes. His sincere request catches Dokna off guard, momentarily silencing her. Arms crossed, she glares, annoyed yet contemplating his desperate proposal. Reluctantly, she agrees that a few more minutes should be fine. With a stern look, she reminds Leaf to recall her previous warning. Later that night, a solitary lamppost casts light on the tranquil village street. As they walk, Leaf apologizes to Granny Merlin for the earlier altercation. She can't believe that Dokna, Master Asclepius's granddaughter, turned out so poorly. Merlin bluntly asks if he is truly certain about having Dokna as his fiancée. He defends her, explaining she's faced difficulties and he must be dependable. Granny Merlin listens to his defense, her expression filled with deep concern. She halts on the path, questioning if he is genuinely okay with his situation. As they continue walking, she begins to share her thoughts about him. Merlin suggests he could become a far more esteemed healer if he left. She insists he deserves better than this bleak village, but he brushes it off. He explains that he owes a significant debt to his master for taking him in. Standing firm in front of the shop, he vows to safeguard it for his master's sake. The following morning, Leaf is depicted sleeping soundly in his room above the shop. He yawns deeply in his slumber, completely oblivious to the impending disturbance. Sunlight pours through the window of the serene, book-lined room. Dokna, dressed in an elegant gown, looms over him, shouting for the fool to wake up. A startled Leaf jolts awake, bewildered by the sudden commotion. Groggily, he inquires about her dress as she calls him a carefree idiot. Dokna leans closer, a sly grin on her face, asking if Leaf is curious about her secret. With a victorious flair, she reveals that she has wed a formidable lord. Leaf's world halts. His eyes widen in sheer disbelief at her startling revelation. He rushes down the stairs, urgently begging them to wait. A maid stands quietly in the background, a mere observer to the unfolding chaos. Downstairs, Leaf confronts a nobleman, demanding to understand what's happening. The man clutches a box filled with the treasured books of Leaf's master. Recognizing the belongings, Leaf gasps in horror, realizing they belong to his master. The gravity of the moment overwhelms him, and he collapses onto the apothecary floor. The nobleman coolly informs the fallen youth that he has arrived too late. Dokna leans over Leaf, coldly declaring that the shop now belongs to Lord Ocaron. Her sharp, affirmative shout confirms that the takeover is finalized. The announcement rings out that the apothecary is now under the Vatslak barony. The nobleman introduces himself with a smug smile as Baron Ocaron's son, Vatslak. He gazes down at the crumpled Leaf, asking if this is the brat he heard about. The Baron boasts that Dokna is a perfect match for someone like him. She coos with delight, while Leaf questions what they could possibly mean. Leif protests loudly, asserting that this is his master's establishment. The Baron explains that as Dukuna's husband, her inheritance is now his. His face contorts into a sneer as he claims everything, dismissing Leif as a commoner. Leif stares in horrified silence, the dreadful truth finally dawning on him. As the new couple laughs, Leif sits defeated and alone on the floor. He clenches his fist in silent fury, muttering that their actions are absurd. Tears well in his eyes as he questions why this is happening to him. Memories of his inherited tools and cherished customers flash through his mind. He grieves the loss of his precious memories of his master and everything he stood for. Looking up at Dakuna, he screams, demanding to know why she had to take it all. She retorts angrily, claiming the apothecary is her grandfather's rightful property. Dakuna cruelly reminds him that he is merely an unrelated abandoned child. Her words hit Leif like a physical blow, leaving him stunned into silence. Her tone shifts to feigned sympathy as she insists she isn't entirely heartless. She condescendingly suggests that someone as foolish as him would perish without her aid. Kneeling before him, she offers a demeaning position as their servant. Leif's expression is one of emptiness as he processes the humiliating proposal. He stands, turns away, and tells them to do as they please. Dakuna is utterly shocked by his unexpected and defiant refusal. She stammers in disbelief, reminding him that she just offered him a job. The Baron places a hand on her shoulder, telling her that it's sufficient. He observes Leif leaving, commenting that a weakling is better off alone. Leif takes a resolute step away from the shop, abandoning his former life. A warm memory of his master's praise for his work surfaces in his mind. The master's encouraging voice resonates, assuring Leif of a bright future ahead. He fondly remembers playfully telling his master to stop ruffling his hair. Back in the present, his hand tightens into a fist, overwhelmed by profound grief. Tears cascade down his cheeks as he sobs a heartfelt apology to his master. The scene depicts the quiet outskirts of town, with trees and a lone lamppost. Drifting and alone, Leif sits atop a pile of rocks in a dense forest. He ponders his next move, knowing he can't go to Granny and burden her. The crushing realization dawns on him. He has no home or place to stay. He remembers Granny suggesting he could become a great healer if he just left. Reclining, Leif ponders the overwhelming idea of abandoning his village. A surge of sheer terror engulfs him as he questions his survival in the city. He sits in despair, fretting about becoming a homeless liability without funds. His thoughts of solitude are abruptly interrupted by a new sensation. Sitting up, he shifts his attention, inhaling the air with keen interest. Gazing up at the treetops, he contemplates the peculiar odor. He tracks the scent, his face alert as he navigates through the woods. In a clearing, he stumbles upon the gruesome aftermath of a nightly clash. A closer inspection reveals a mangled corpse, a sign of a vicious assault. He gasps, recoiling in horror as he absorbs the extent of the devastation. Kneeling next to a knight, he softly inquires if the man is okay. He suspects a monster is responsible, noting the scene's bizarre nature. A sudden noise jolts him, his eyes widening in astonishment. From behind some boulders, an armored woman aids her injured noble. She notices Leif and asks if he hails from the village of Dead End. Her urgency is palpable as she pleads for someone to heal them. She recounts how monsters ambushed them en route to the village. Leif glances back at the two women from his spot beside the wounded knight. Her armored companion Lilithy questions his intentions. He calmly asserts that fetching another healer is unnecessary. From his pouch, he pulls out simple herbs, leaving the garden puzzled. With a sharp motion, he crushes the herbs in his hands. A brilliant flash of light bursts from his palms, leaving everyone stunned. A knight exclaims in disbelief as he feels his severe wounds mending. Another knight watches in awe as his severed arm miraculously regrows. The survivor wonders if it's magic, but Leif calmly refutes it. With a warm smile, he clarifies that it's merely ordinary medicine. The noble woman Priscilla gazes at him, her face filled with wonder. Her guard, Lilithy, skeptically reconsiders his assertion in her mind. A healed knight inspects his restored hand, contemplating the astonishing power. The knights express their astonishment, likening it to a miraculous recovery potion. Leif attempts to downplay their amazement, but one insists he won't be deceived. Lilithy vehemently denies that ordinary medicine could achieve such a feat. She accuses him of trying to trick them, but he sincerely denies it. She argues that even the finest healer couldn't perform such a miracle. Her face reflects pure, furious disbelief at the impossible sight. Lilithy calls out to her lady as Priscilla steps forward to intercede. Priscilla gazes at Leaf, blushing as she thanks him for his assistance. She affectionately pats his head, praising his kindness to strangers. With sparkling eyes, she tells him he seems almost divine, like in tales. The flustered Leaf finally asks the travelers to reveal their identities. Priscilla apologizes for not introducing herself earlier. With a radiant smile, she discloses that she is Priscilla von Graham, a duke's daughter. She shares that she heard rumors about him and came in desperate hope. Taking his hand gently, she insists that their meeting must be fate. She gazes at him intently, identifying him as the medicine god of Dead End. With urgency, she implores him to come to the royal capital. Leaf stares at her, his face a mask of utter shock. He can only manage a quiet, stunned response to her urgent request. His mind erupts in a silent, horrified scream from the sudden shock. With gratitude in her eyes, Priscilla gently takes the healer's hands. Leaf is caught off guard, his thoughts racing from the unexpected contact. He recoils, panicking, explaining he's only accustomed to the elderly in Dakuna. Quickly, he apologizes for his abruptness, but Priscilla reassures him it's fine. Regaining his composure, Leaf clarifies he isn't the famed god of medicine she seeks. He inquires if she refers to his deceased master, Asclepius, revealing the true god has passed. Priscilla's gaze drops, her face falling as she absorbs this disheartening revelation. She starts to pose another question, her hope not entirely extinguished. Still blushing, Leaf begins to ask something of his own, curiosity piqued. Before they can proceed, a pack of monstrous dire wolves surrounds them. Lalithi, the armored guard, screams in fear, recognizing the terrifying creatures. Amid the rising chaos, Leaf remains surprisingly composed, eyeing the looming threat. Priscilla watches, her worried expression betraying her earlier calm. The entire group finds themselves encircled by the massive, snarling wolves. In despair, Priscilla collapses to her knees on the blood-soaked ground. She calls out for her guard, Lilithi, her voice trembling with fear. Lilithi grimly concludes their situation is dire, and they are doomed. She recalls that even one of these beasts could wipe out their entire party. The recently healed knights bemoan their unfortunate fate, fearing they'll be devoured. One knight stands protectively in front of Priscilla, ready to make a last stand. He steels himself, determined to protect his lady at all costs. Leaf addresses the two largest wolves, asking what pups are doing here. Priscilla stares in disbelief at his nonchalant attitude. Lilithi urgently yells for him to get down, fearing for his safety. She insists that as a healer, he lacks any combat skills. As a massive wolf lunges, Leaf calmly reaches for a pouch at his belt. He produces a single glowing herb and tosses it toward the beast. The wolf, confused by the offering, is struck mid-lunge by the herb. Leaf then releases a crackling wave of energy, paralyzing the wolves. Lilithi can only watch in astonishment at his unexpected powerful move. He explains that the fundamentals of medicine are dosage and application. However, he adds, a healer can bend those rules for different outcomes. Crushing another herb, he prepares a new, far more lethal concoction. With fierce determination, he unleashes a deadly toxin upon his foes. Priscilla watches in wide-eyed shock as he wields his craft with lethal intent. As he walks past her, Leaf asks if she knows the tale of his predecessor. A narrator recounts the legend of the god of medicine who once saved the world. Leaf unleashes a massive vortex of dark energy, obliterating the wolf pack. The dark energy fades, leaving the clearing eerily devoid of monsters. His companions, Priscilla, Lilithi, and the knights, stare in stunned silence. A flashback reveals Leaf humbly introducing himself as just a rookie healer. He shyly asked Priscilla if he could join her group on the way to the capital. A map shows his home as a distant village known as Dead End. An illustration reveals this place is also called the Village of Heroes. The scene frames the narrative as the tale of this young boy's adventure. In a distant memory, a defiant young Leaf declares he's done being a healer. His master angrily shouts for the brat to stop right there. A younger Leaf grins mischievously, calling his master a brat in return. He runs off, having taped a note labeling his master an eccentric old man. Back in the present, the newly formed party travels together in a covered wagon. A contemplative Leaf gazes back, his dark eyes revealing a mind lost in thought. As they wander through a sun-drenched forest, Priscilla inquires if something troubles the quiet boy. Startled, he apologizes for drifting off, brushing it aside with a warm grin. Leaf then questions Priscilla about her search for his late master. Observing them, the armored guard Lilith silently conveys her deep skepticism towards the boy. She challenges Priscilla, cautioning that welcoming such a dubious character is perilous. Priscilla passionately defends Leaf, declaring him their last hope with miraculous healing abilities. Suddenly, the wagon jolts to a harsh stop, tossing the passengers into chaos. Lilith yells at the driver, demanding to know what's going on outside. As the wagon halts, Priscilla emits a sharp cry of alarm. An elderly woman appears inside, assuring a doubtful Lilith that the boy is sincere. Before their eyes, the enigmatic woman begins to levitate, enveloped in a magical glow. Leaf and Priscilla exclaim in unison, astonished to see the familiar old woman. While floating, the woman suggests she might not be who she appears to be. She morphs into the stunning and legendary sage Merlin Carter, leaving them speechless. Priscilla, starstruck, expresses her honor, noting the flying magic confirms Merlin's identity. Merlin stands up for Leaf, asking if Lilith is now convinced of his integrity. The young healer blushes deeply, flustered by the unexpected praise. A humbled Lilith offers a formal apology, her cheeks flushed from her earlier doubts. Her mood shifts to anger as she accuses him of disgraceful conduct. Later, Merlin finds him alone, expressing her relief that he is safe. She shares her worries after hearing about the troubles he faced at home. With a wistful smile, Leaf confesses he feels he can't live up to his master's abilities. A fleeting memory of his master's somber, thoughtful expression surfaces. Recognizing his pain, Merlin gently places her hand on Lee's shoulder in comfort. He gazes at her with vulnerability, softly uttering her name, Granny. She firmly encourages him, insisting he has no reason to belittle himself. With a kind smile, Merlin reassures him that a bright future lies ahead. His eyes widen in disbelief as she presents him with a gift. As he unfolds the cloth, he recognizes with awe that it is his master's robe. Priscilla and Lilith quietly witness the profound emotional exchange from afar. He stands silently, clutching the cherished heirloom, a tangible connection to his past. Leaf's mind wanders to the painful memory of being abandoned in his childhood. In a flashback, Master Dokakuna kindly took him in, raising him alongside his granddaughter. His younger self once found healing difficult, but grew to deeply respect his master's skill. Merlin presents a gift, explaining it was his master's wish for when Lee created his own legacy. She decides he needs it now more than ever, realization dawning on Leaf. As he unfolds the robe, he discovers a note from his master calling him a snot-nosed brat. His eyes widen in shock as a blush of emotion spreads across his face. Completely overwhelmed, the young man buries his face in his arm and begins to weep. He manages to express his gratitude to the old woman for the heartfelt gift. Turning to his new friends, he realizes he hasn't truly lost everything. He acknowledges the fear that he might become a burden to his new companions. Clutching the robe, he reveals his long-held desire to finally embark on an adventure. With a beaming smile, he declares his dream to explore the world and grow as a healer. He stands resolute, pledging to follow the same path his master took in his youth. Merlin offers her blessing with a warm smile, urging him to live his own life. Before he leaves, she tells him to accept some parting gifts for his new journey. Merlin offers financial aid for his travels, but Lee firmly insists on forging his own path. Respecting his choice, she reassures him not to worry and simply do his best. Leaf waves farewell, calling out to his friend, assuring them there's no need for concern. Merlin, the sage, takes to the skies, her face hardening with a silent, grim promise. Lilith the knight observes her departure, puzzled by Merlin's enigmatic farewell. The covered wagon continues its trek, rumbling along a wooded path. Inside, a knight informs Lady Priscilla and Lilith that they are about to leave the forest. Priscilla gently warns someone not to trip over their own excitement. Now donned in his master's white robe, Leaf stands tall in the moving wagon. Priscilla glances at him, her face warm and filled with eager anticipation. With a blush, Leaf eagerly affirms that he shares in her excitement. In contrast, Lila watches with an expression of utter boredom. Peering out from the wagon, Lee senses that his adventure is finally beginning. Ahead, a bright light beckons at the end of the forest trail. A wave of joy washes over him as he declares that his journey starts now. Overwhelmed by the view, Leaf marvels at the sheer beauty surrounding him. Suddenly, their carriage is overshadowed by a gigantic creature resembling a lizard. Lila stares in disbelief, questioning the reality of what she sees. The naive Leaf wonders aloud about the types of lizards that might exist beyond his village. With a voice filled with fear, Lila corrects him, exclaiming that it's a dragon. Her shock quickly spirals into a fit of uncontrollable laughter. The enormous dragon speaks, ridiculing the foolish human for their ignorance. The group inside the wagon is taken aback by the Dragon King's voice. Lila finds the notion of a talking dragon utterly ridiculous and hard to believe. She recognizes it as a legendary ancient dragon, questioning why it is there. The beast demands to know who the insignificant human is. Leaf calmly states he is a healer. The dragon brushes him off, preparing to incinerate the group with its flames. Resigned to her fate, Lila clings to Priscilla, expressing her deep despair. She believes their journey has come to a tragic end. In her final moments, she sorrowfully questions the meaning of her life. Suddenly, Leaf springs into action, readying what he calls a prescription. He downs a muscle-boosting potion, causing the wagon's floor to crack. Leaping from the carriage, the young healer charges straight at the colossal beast. Lila can only watch in confusion as he rushes toward the fire-breathing dragon. With determination, Leaf shouts his resolve to shield everyone from danger. He delivers a powerful punch to the creature's head, fueled by his newfound strength. The dragon's massive head recoils from the impact of the staggering blow. Knocked out cold, the legendary monster collapses to the ground, utterly vanquished. Lila and Priscilla stare in complete disbelief, muttering in shock. Later, Leaf happily adjusts his new robe, feeling like a genuine healer. Lila glares at him, her mind still spinning from the unbelievable event she just witnessed. Furiously, she grabs him, demanding to know what kind of healer he really is. As their wagon rolls on, she asks Priscilla why her help is necessary. Priscilla explains they were in search of a divine healer for a crucial reason. She reveals to Leaf that they need him to examine a particular individual. Their journey reaches its conclusion as they arrive at the splendid royal capital. The group navigates through the bustling streets of the grand city. Leaf is awestruck by the sight of the diverse and lively crowd. With wide, innocent eyes, he absorbs the incredible new environment. He exclaims in wonder, finally realizing he has arrived at the royal capital. He marvels at the closely packed homes, so unlike his rural upbringing. Lila scolds him for making a scene with his wide-eyed rustic enthusiasm. Feeling overwhelmed by the city, Leaf apologizes for his rustic demeanor, while Lila firmly reminds him to behave properly. Leif, puzzled, inquires about Lord Cypher's identity, leading to an exasperated Lila clarifying that he is Priscilla's father. Reflecting on this new revelation, Leif quietly repeats to himself that he is about to meet Priscilla's father. He envisions a kind man similar to Priscilla and resolves to avoid causing him any trouble. Snapped from his thoughts, Leif observes as Priscilla starts to lead them onward. Following their noble guide, the group navigates through the lively city streets. With a touch of confusion, Leif listens as Priscilla announces it's time for them to move forward. Imposing knights clad in full plate armor begin to escort them into the grand ducal estate. A line of armored guards stands at attention, marking the formal entrance to the Great Hall. From his throne, the formidable Duke Cypher warmly welcomes his daughter Priscilla back home. Overwhelmed by the Duke's intimidating presence, Leif stifles a silent, panicked scream. As Priscilla apologizes to her father for her abrupt departure, Leif nervously tries to steady himself. He panics internally, recalling that dukes wield immense power, second only to the royal family. Unsure of what to do, he remembers his only previous negative encounter with nobility. A painful memory surfaces of a cruel nobleman derisively calling him a commoner. Gazing down the grand hall, he resigns himself to failure, feeling utterly hopeless. He thinks Priscilla must have been mistaken in her praise, expecting only the same cruelty he has faced from nobles. Priscilla informs her father that the trip was successful, indicating the boy she brought along. She proudly introduces Leif by name, confirming to her father that the rumors about him are true. Feeling deeply intimidated, Leif stutters as he attempts to formally introduce himself to the imposing Duke. In a surprising move, the Duke steps down from his throne and approaches the young healer. Leif stares in disbelief as the powerful nobleman addresses him with unexpected respect. With sincerity, the Duke bows his head and requests the boy's assistance. The Duke's humble request from the floor leaves Leif utterly bewildered, questioning what is happening. Later, inside the grand estate, Leif seeks an explanation for the Duke's astonishing behavior. A servant formally presents a steaming cup of tea to the estate's esteemed guest. He learns that the tea is a special blend served exclusively at the estate. After taking a sip, Leif steers the conversation back to the reason for his visit. He directly asks Priscilla to identify the person she needs him to examine. With a serious expression, Priscilla prepares to finally disclose the truth of her situation. She turns from the window and formally requests him to examine her mother. She explains that her mother is a powerful magician who has always enjoyed perfect health. However, a month ago she collapsed, and her condition has only deteriorated since. Anxiously clasping her hands, she reveals that her mother currently does nothing but sleep. Leaf now realizes this is why they urgently sought the help of his late master. He asks a logical question about the diagnosis from the other attending physicians. Priscilla looks away sadly, admitting that they have no idea what the illness is. Lord Cypher explains that their medical staff and head physician have been unable to assist. He confirms they only suspect stress, while her condition continues to steadily worsen. The weight of this impossible situation sinks in, causing Leaf to look down in contemplation. Stunned by the revelation of this medical enigma, he finds himself momentarily speechless. Filled with self-doubt, he wonders aloud what he could possibly do to help her. He questions his ability to succeed where the capital's finest doctors have already failed. A heavy, desperate atmosphere envelops the family as they await his decision. Priscilla watches him, her expression a blend of deep sorrow and desperate hope. In a memory, a younger Priscilla and her mother hear the Duke's heartfelt plea. With tears welling in her eyes, Priscilla leans forward, pleading with him to save her mother. Her emotional appeal makes Leaf look up, his eyes wide with sudden intensity. Lord Cypher then adds his own voice, echoing the same request to the young healer. The Duke then stands and bows deeply before him, an act that completely astonishes Leaf. A flustered Leaf argues that such formalities are unnecessary. The formidable Lord Cypher bows deeply, entrusting the boy to his wife, Diane. Leaf quietly absorbs the heavy burden of the nobleman's urgent request. He contemplates the kindness of both the Lord and his daughter. A close-up of Leaf's eye shows a flicker of newfound, unwavering resolve. He reassures the hopeful nobles that he will dedicate himself fully to the task. With fresh determination, he vows to do everything possible to heal her. Priscilla and her father are visibly filled with hope and relief. Priscilla breaks into tears, saying she can't express her gratitude enough. The emotional lord clasps Leaf's hands, thanking the young man profusely. After their emotional outburst, they regain composure and check on Leaf. Lord Cypher then calls for his butler, Ludasi, to guide them. Priscilla kindly invites Leaf to follow her down the grand corridor. With a determined stride, Leaf silently pledges on his master's name to succeed. Before the doors, he swears to save her life, regardless of the cost. He hesitates for a moment, his resolve solidifying before entering the room. A bead of sweat betrays his anxiety despite his determined look. His hand reaches for the door, prepared to face the challenge inside. A sudden voice commands them to halt, startling both Leaf and Priscilla. Priscilla gasps in recognition at the unexpected arrival. A dashing young man, Cerbicus, makes a grand entrance, announcing himself. Leaf stands confused, pondering the identity of this self-assured newcomer. Priscilla excitedly reveals that he is the royal court doctor, leaving Leaf shocked. Holding a rose, Bacchus coolly questions what they are doing there. Lord Cypher looks surprised but pleased that Bacchus has come to assist. Bacchus explains he learned of the lady's condition and made time to see her. He confidently reassures Lord Cypher that his presence is all that's required. He proudly claims to be a disease expert and the youngest royal court doctor. Taking charge, Bacchus confidently leads the way into the patient's room. Priscilla offers a quick apology to Leaf as she follows behind. The massive doors close, leaving Leaf standing alone in the corridor. He feels utterly lost, questioning his purpose in this situation. Feeling disheartened, he thinks a country pharmacist can't compete with city doctors. Bacchus calls out from down the hall, grabbing his attention. He tells the daydreaming Leaf to stop wasting time and come inside immediately. Bacchus condescendingly invites Leaf to observe and learn from a true expert. Misinterpreting the tone as kindness, Leaf feels momentarily touched by the offer. His illusion shatters when Bacchus sharply warns him not to interfere. Leaf flinches, his fleeting admiration disappearing in an instant. Inside the room, they find Diane lying still, surrounded by other doctors. Priscilla approaches the bed, sorrowfully calling out to her unconscious mother. When Leaf inquires about her symptoms, a doctor confirms there's been no change. Another physician admits to Bacchus that they are baffled by the case. Bacchus calmly takes the patient's chart to start his own assessment. His expression is intensely focused as he examines the medical details. Lord Cypher and Priscilla watch with anxious anticipation. Bacchus quickly completes his review, astonishing everyone with his speed. The other doctors marvel at his rapid pace as Lord Cypher anxiously seeks the verdict. Raising a hand, Bacchus requests silence before disclosing the illness's name. He delivers the somber diagnosis. Diane suffers from the incurable MNC disease. Bacchus, the royal physician, somberly details the deadly illness, emphasizing its total mortality rate. Duke Cypher, in distress, recalls that a remedy for this very disease once existed. A flashback reveals that the ingredients for the cure were lost during the Great War against the Demon King. Upon hearing the grim diagnosis, Priscilla collapses in the hallway, her father shouting in alarm. In shock, Priscilla covers her mouth, her eyes wide with terror at the dreadful news. The Duke stands paralyzed, muttering to himself as he grapples with the reality of his wife's impending death. Bacchus turns away from the bedside, resigned to the fact that her death is unavoidable. The other medical attendants stand by, their expressions grim and defeated, offering no further assistance. Amidst the despair, a single hand rises, signaling an unexpected interruption to the somber atmosphere. Stepping forward, the young pharmacist Leaf boldly claims he can cure the so-called incurable illness. Bacchus spins around, utterly shocked and speechless at the boy's confident assertion. Furious, the royal doctor seizes Leaf by his coat, scolding him for his interference. He insists angrily that without the special medicine, a cure is simply impossible. With a calm smile, Leaf presents the legendary herb, declaring he possesses the necessary ingredients. Bacchus instantly recognizes the herb's distinct characteristics, confirming it as authentic Shingaku. Demanding an explanation, he is taken aback when Leaf casually mentions it grew in his backyard. The doctor dismisses this as absurd, questioning whether it could truly grow in the mountains. He then asserts that even if the herb is genuine, they cannot utilize it. Leaf calmly counters, explaining that the reason is straightforward. Diane does not have Imanchi disease. Priscilla and her father stare, completely taken aback by this second unexpected revelation. Bacchus is left utterly perplexed, wondering what the boy is trying to convey. With a casual grin, Leaf scratches his head as he begins to elaborate on his theory. The royal doctor confronts him, labeling his claim as insincere and demanding clarification. Leaf highlights a crucial inconsistency. The illness's progression is far too rapid. Bacchus quickly shifts his focus to the medical chart resting on the bedside table. He concedes that the timeline is indeed too short, but questions how Leaf knows these specifics. Leaf politely requests to examine the medical record, and Bacchus reluctantly consents. A bead of sweat trickles down as the royal doctor observes the boy with intense scrutiny. With the chart in hand, Leaf calmly contemplates the details of the patient's condition. Bacchus concludes that the boy is no ordinary individual given his knowledge and possessions. Despite his growing doubts, the doctor's pride compels him to cling to his initial diagnosis. He reaffirms his belief, stating that as the specialist, his diagnosis must be accurate. Leaf calmly proposes an alternative theory. The affliction may not be an illness at all. The doctor's eyes narrow as he questions what the boy means by such a peculiar suggestion. Approaching the bedside, Leaf announces his plan to examine a sample of Diane's blood. He employs a unique syringe-like instrument to extract a small blood sample from the patient's arm. Holding the device aloft, he prepares to conduct his unconventional analysis of the sample. The sample reacts violently with dark energy, confirming his suspicions about the affliction. Turning to the astonished onlookers, Leaf reveals that the true cause of her condition is curse poison. The royal doctor is completely taken aback, his face a mask of shock at this new diagnosis. The other doctors murmur, speculating if it is the legendary poison used by demons. Leaf explains that he discovered a clue hidden within the doctor's earlier narrative. He reveals that this specific poison is also a toxin lost since the last Great War. A demon is depicted creating the poison designed to curse and eliminate human victims. He explains that the poison's progression was hastened by Diane's own potent magic. Then, with a cheeky grin, he apologizes for seeming superior, claiming he was merely sharing his knowledge. The doctor's face twists with silent fury at the boy's nonchalant display of expertise. The young pharmacist is startled as the doctor suddenly grips him by the shoulders. His rage shifts to admiration, and he enthusiastically commends the boy's remarkable knowledge. Leaf is left utterly bewildered by the royal doctor's sudden and fervent change in demeanor. The court's healer enthusiastically commends Lee for his remarkable expertise and dedicated studies. Flushed with excitement, Leaf feels both flattered and thrilled by the unexpected accolades from the esteemed official. Once he regains his composure, the physician places his hands on Leaf's shoulders, inquiring about the possibility of a cure. Leaf affirms that a cure is achievable but warns that it will necessitate extremely careful handling. Gazing at the patient's bed, Leaf concurs with the physician that time is of the essence. He becomes lost in anxious thoughts, worrying that his supply of the herb to lift the curse may fall short. With his hand resting on his chin, Leaf quietly ponders his next steps. An idea suddenly hits him, and he drops to his knees, exclaiming in realization. Priscilla identifies the item he retrieves as a farewell gift from Merlin, which Leaf confirms. Lifting a grand, ornate staff high, Leaf confidently proclaims that he will use it to heal her. At Diane's bedside, Leaf announces his plan to utilize the staff for the healing process. The court physician expresses doubt, questioning whether Leaf is serious about using a staff. With a self-assured grin, Leaf tells him to simply observe as he readies a small vial. He meticulously places the vial of medicine into a slot at the top of the staff. With a satisfying click, the vial secures itself onto the large crystalline head of the staff. Firmly gripping the staff, he announces that he is prepared to initiate the powerful procedure. Raising the staff above the unconscious Diane, he shouts that he is about to administer the medicine. A tremendous burst of radiant light erupts from the divine healer's staff, leaving everyone in awe. Bacchus, the husband of the patient, stares in sheer wonder and disbelief at the miraculous display. The court physician is equally astonished, muttering in amazement at the power he is witnessing. Priscilla, hands near her mouth, whispers that the unfolding scene is nothing short of incredible. In her bed, Diane's pale skin instantly regains a healthy hue as she sleeps soundly. Leaf explains that medicine only works effectively when delivered through the correct method. He proudly asserts that the divine healer's staff provides the perfect dosage with a simple swing. Priscilla and the physician express their astonishment that such a fantastical, remarkable staff could exist. Overcome with envy, the physician seizes Leaf and demands to be given such an impressive tool. Leaf bluntly declines, thinking to himself that they aren't nearly close enough to be friends. A faint voice calling for Priscilla from the bed suddenly breaks the tension. Priscilla turns to the bed, her eyes wide with shock and a glimmer of hope. Overwhelmed with emotion, Bacchus whispers his wife's name, Diane, as tears well up in his eyes. Diane, now awake, surveys the room with a gentle, puzzled expression. With a shout, Priscilla dashes across the room to her mother's bedside. Diane watches her daughter approach, murmuring her heartfelt gratitude for being saved. Collapsing onto the bed, Priscilla weeps with overwhelming joy and deep relief. A soft smile appears on Diane's face as she gently calls out to her emotional daughter. Leaf observes the touching family reunion with a quiet, deeply content smile. The family shares a tearful embrace, finally reunited after the harrowing ordeal. Diane rests peacefully in her bed, her recovery progressing well after the miraculous healing. Leaf informs the family that Diane will gradually regain her strength and magical abilities. Priscilla excitedly proposes they host a celebratory banquet for Leaf, a suggestion her father loves. The young healer modestly attempts to decline, telling them not to go through such trouble for him. He smiles shyly, stating that as a pharmacist, he has merely fulfilled his expected duties. Priscilla gazes at him, her eyes sparkling with admiration and growing affection. Bacchus, weeping with gratitude, takes Leaf's hands and emotionally declares him a good person. He insists that Leaf must stay the night and accept a reward for his heroic actions. Priscilla stands shyly to the side, her hands clasped as she observes the interaction. A deep blush spreads across her cheeks as she continues to admire the young healer. That evening, a grand banquet commences at the castle, overlooking the illuminated capital. Inside, the court physician raises a glass, calling out to his new friend, Leaf. He joyfully commends Leaf's remarkable ability to have seen through the cursed poison. In an opulent chamber, Leaf informs the jubilant supporters that he's had his fill of drinks. Bacchus brushes off his worry, proclaiming it a day to celebrate his first professional loss. He remains in disbelief, having seen the fabled and unusual curse poison up close. As the festivities continue, Leaf's demeanor shifts to serious, hinting at an unresolved question. He inquires how the lady of the house, Diane, could have possibly ingested the toxin. The question lingers, leaving the doctor completely taken aback. Bacchus calls out to Leaf, puzzled by the abrupt and grave change in tone. Before elaborating, Leaf urges Bacchus to keep their upcoming conversation confidential. He starts his theory by asking if Bacchus remembers a notorious historical murder case. Lee clarifies his point, explaining how eye drops can become lethal in large doses. Bacchus recalls the incident where a wife gradually poisoned her husband, faking his demise. Leaf proposes that the curse poison likely operates in a similar fashion. He asserts that the method of delivery, the modus operandi, remains consistent. The chilling realization hits Bacchus. The poison was mixed into something she ingested. Bacchus ponders the reasoning, and Lee firmly validates his suspicion. Leaf stands, delivering a chilling conclusion. The culprit is someone very close to Diane. The scene transitions to a long, deserted corridor, creating a foreboding atmosphere. In a bedroom, Lady Diane is shown peacefully sleeping in her grand canopy bed. Her daughter Priscilla sits beside her, gently caressing her mother's sleeping face. She gazes at her mother with profound affection and a sense of relief. Softly, she asks her mother if she recalls the childhood tales about the medicine god. Priscilla reflects that the rumors were accurate. The god has passed but left a disciple. Looking out the window, she marvels that this disciple was the one who healed her. A deep blush spreads across her cheeks as she admits to herself he is kind and cool. Her face flushes completely as she grapples with her growing feelings for him. She shakes her head, snapping out of her daydream about him. A voice from the doorway suddenly interrupts her, asking if she is by herself. Priscilla turns to find the family butler, Rudolph, standing formally at the entrance. She explains her choice to remain with her recovering mother throughout the night. Then she politely inquires if Rudak needs anything from her resting mother. With a shadowed expression, Rudak quietly acknowledges that the lady of the house is resting. His face twists into a sinister grin as he remarks that this is fortunate. He menacingly states that now his dreadful secret can finally be buried for good. Priscilla, alarmed by his words, questions what he means regarding the culprit. The butler stands silently for a moment, his face obscured by shadows. He mutters about how troublesome this situation has become, startling Priscilla. A dark, violent aura erupts around him as he groans in pain. Rudak morphs into a muscular demon, lamenting how close he was to killing Diane. Priscilla gasps in horror, realizing a demon stands before her. The demon grumbles that his luck ran out when the cursed poison was uncovered. He insincerely apologizes, claiming he can no longer suppress his true nature. With glowing eyes, he coldly asks Priscilla if she would kindly die for him. The demon mocks her, asserting that the troublesome Leaf won't be coming to her aid. He boasts that Leaf is likely succumbing to a poison he administered earlier. Priscilla's horror deepens, realizing the demon has also poisoned her hero, Leaf. The demon advances, shifting his focus toward her and her mother's bed. He declares he won't allow her to thwart his wicked plan. Priscilla stands resolutely, spreading her arms to protect her sleeping mother. The demon watches, a flicker of amusement crossing his face at her defiance. He mockingly remarks that familial love is sweet before preparing to strike her down. The sinister butler, Rudak, towers over Priscilla, asserting his invincibility. In her panic, a frantic Priscilla cries out for Leaf's assistance. With rage etched on his face, the demon charges, ordering them to perish. Priscilla emits a terrified scream as the demon's strike looms closer. Overcome by dread, Priscilla braces for what seems like a fatal hit. A sudden powerful kick lands squarely on the demon's head, halting its attack. The force sends the enormous demon hurtling across the room, crashing hard. Priscilla watches in wide-eyed astonishment at this shocking turn of events. Turning to her rescuer, she breathlessly whispers Leaf's name, disbelief flooding her. From the debris, the demon expresses shock at Leaf's sudden appearance. Rising to his feet, the demon angrily demands to know how Leaf survived. A flashback reveals Rudak confirming he witnessed a leaf consume the poison. Still seething, the demon insists on understanding how his assassination failed. Leaf calmly inquires if the drink contained poison, admitting he overlooked it. With a sheepish grin, he apologizes, explaining that poison doesn't affect him. He discloses that his master's training has granted him total immunity to toxins. Blushing, Leaf awkwardly shares his unique constitution, trailing off mid-sentence. Rudak quakes, his disbelief morphing swiftly into unrestrained fury. Menacingly hovering, he proclaims that a mere apothecary is becoming too audacious. In a flash, Rudak propels himself forward in a furious assault. He boasts that in a battle of raw strength, his demonic might is unmatched. Rudak mocks the healer, challenging him to utilize his medicine now. A maniacal laugh escapes him as he launches a devastating punch at his opponent. Their strikes collide, creating a powerful shockwave that reverberates between them. The demon expresses utter disbelief that his formidable attacks are ineffective. His confidence crumbles under this unforeseen and impossible twist. Rudek then observes his adversary recovering instantly from the blow. Calmly analyzing, Leaf identifies the demon's power source as stimulants. He explains how they significantly enhance the body's natural healing abilities. Fuming at this revelation, the demon angrily labels the young healer a brat. Leaf presents his own countermeasure, holding a vial he claims is poison. The demon watches in horror as Leaf demonstrates the correct application. Struck by a potent neurotoxin, the demon's powerful body jolts in shock. He collapses onto the cracked ground, crying out in paralyzing pain. Looking up in fear, he sees the young healer Leaf standing over him. The demon's pride crumbles as he pleads for mercy, insisting it doesn't have to end this way. He desperately vows to retreat to the demon realm and rectify everything. With tears streaming down his face, he makes a final desperate appeal for his life. Against the backdrop of a castle spire, Leaf calmly remarks on the stunning full moon. The frightened demon asks him to pause, confused by Leaf's inquiry about the situation. He screams for the healer to halt whatever he is planning next. Leaf begins an unusual medical lecture on how the full moon can induce illness. As the demon's final plea is abruptly cut off, Leaf prepares for a procedure. A massive surge of energy erupts as he unleashes a powerful detox massage. Pinned beneath the rubble, the demon's face contorts in sheer shock. An unexpected wave of pleasure washes over him, a sensation he vocalizes. Now diminished and harmless, he profusely apologizes and vows to return home. With a bright smile, Leaf firmly warns that there better not be a next time. On the shattered ground, the defeated demon lord trembles with fear, utterly stunned. As he flies away, the demon shouts its obedience while Leaf watches it depart. Peeking cautiously from behind tall stone pillars, Priscilla takes a careful look. Concern fills her face as she examines the chaos around her. In the center of the courtyard, the young healer Leaf stands amidst the debris. He turns to her, expressing regret for the devastation that has unfolded. Priscilla's eyes glisten with tears as she gazes at him, her cheeks flushed. She dashes across the wrecked ground, enveloping him in a warm embrace. Taken aback by her sudden gesture, Leaf calls her name, puzzled. With joy, Priscilla exclaims that he has saved her once more. Embarrassment washes over his face from her affectionate hug. She fervently vows to find a way to repay him for his kindness. With determination, she grips his coat, insisting he understand her promise. Leaf, overwhelmed by her boldness, feels dizzy and stutters. Under the bright moonlight, he pleads for her to stop leaning on him. Later, water cascades from a beautifully crafted lion-headed fountain in an opulent bathhouse. In the lavish, steamy room, Leaf sits alone at the water's edge. Noticing a faint sound, he turns his head, curiosity etched on his face. He catches sight of a figure approaching in the reflection of a large mirror. Priscilla kneels by the bath, apologizing for making him wait. Shyly, she offers to wash his back as a gesture of her deep gratitude. He reacts in utter shock, mouth agape, struggling to comprehend. His heart races as he wonders how things escalated to this point. Priscilla seems to mirror his flustered and confused state. Reassuringly, she pats his head, explaining it's just a friendly gesture. Leaning in, she gently urges the visibly anxious young man to relax. A wave of tension courses through him, making his body tense with anxiety. She admits this is a new and significant experience for her, too. Gathering her courage, she explains she invited him to express her thanks. Her heartfelt confession lingers in the steamy air between them. He gazes at her, his cheeks flushed with a deep, noticeable blush. His heart races wildly as he struggles to articulate his thoughts. At last, he manages to stammer that her offer doesn't bother him. A small folded towel lies on the wet-tiled floor nearby. Gently, Priscilla begins to apply a soft cloth to his back. She thanks him once again for saving her life earlier that day. Leaning closer, she sweetly tells him to relax as much as he wishes. The tender moment shatters with a sudden splash in the water. Overcome by the sensation, Leaf emits a loud, panicked scream. Startled by his reaction, Priscilla urges him not to stand up so quickly. He feels the soft press of her body against his back. The unexpected contact sends him spiraling into a deeper panic. He spins around, accusing her of behaving very oddly. As he moves abruptly, she loses her balance and stumbles forward. Her eyes widen in surprise at their sudden closeness. Leaf feels dizzy with embarrassment, his head spinning from the moment. He attempts to escape the bath, begging her not to look at him. She quickly reaches out, grasping his hand to stop him. Holding him in place, she confesses that something is wrong with her. She explains that she has succumbed to a peculiar illness. Standing together in the bath, she reveals her illness is love. Looking deeply into his eyes, she earnestly confesses her feelings for him. In the warm bathhouse, Priscilla tenderly grips Leif's wrist as he stutters in bewilderment. Suddenly, she wraps her arms around him from behind, fervently proposing marriage while pressing against him. Her face brimming with emotion, she reveals her intense wish to always be by his side. With heartfelt sincerity, she makes one final appeal for him to accept her proposal. Turning away, Leif quietly expresses that he cannot fulfill her desire. Priscilla watches, her face falling in shock and pain at his refusal. He gently holds her hands, asking if she recalls his earlier chat with Auntie Merline. Gazing up at the grand hall's pillars, he starts to explain his intentions. A memory surfaces, revealing his dream to explore, meet new faces, and expand his horizons. Priscilla listens, her cheeks flushed, eyes locked on him as he shares. With determination, Leif proclaims his ambition to become a healer as great as his mentor. He concludes that this aspiration is his dream, and Priscilla's eyes widen in realization. Embarrassed, he quickly clarifies that his rejection isn't due to any dislike for her. He explains that their worlds are too different, making a relationship unfeasible for now. With a gentle gesture, he wraps up by stating that for now, they cannot be together. Her serious demeanor shifts as she playfully pinches his cheeks, causing him to yelp. Releasing him, she declares that she now fully comprehends his feelings and motivations. With a bright smile, she vows her unwavering support for his aspirations. The mood changes again as she leans in to share a teasing confession. She reveals she can see everything, prompting a mortified scream of embarrassment from him. The scene shifts to a panoramic view of the grand castle against the sky. At the gates, Priscilla's father acknowledges Leif's departure, but appreciates the farewell. In the background, their knight Gawain weeps dramatically as Leif smiles at him. The emotional knight cries out for the boy not to leave, but is told to hush. The Duke then inquires about Leif's plans now that he is leaving. As he walks away, Leif reveals his intention to visit Auntie Merline's grandchild in the capital. The Duke and Duchess bow, expressing their deepest gratitude for saving the Duchess's life. As Leif excuses himself and departs, Priscilla calls out to him. Standing with her parents, she wishes him well and tells him to take care. He pauses briefly, his expression contemplative as leaves swirl around him. A slight confident grin appears on his face as he prepares to respond. He turns back and assures her he will be fine, walking confidently down the path. Watching him leave, the Duke comments that Leif is truly a divine gift. The Duchess then playfully teases her daughter, asking if she has feelings for him. A flustered Priscilla sweats and stammers, attempting to deny her mother's accurate assumption. Clutching her chest, she confesses that seeing Leif has made her certain of something. She reaches her hand toward the sky, declaring her belief that he will become a hero. Looking down the road, she acknowledges that she cannot hold back someone with his fate. She beams with pride, stating he embodies everything one would expect from a legendary healer's apprentice. With renewed determination, she vows to better herself to one day be deserving of him. Thus, the curtain falls on the dramatic events surrounding the Graham family. However, as Leif continues on his path, he remains oblivious to the bigger picture. He is unaware of the true importance of what he has just achieved. The person he rescued was none other than the current king's younger sister. The Duke recognizes the immense debt of gratitude owed to the young healer. He wonders if such a significant debt can ever be repaid in his lifetime. The scene transitions to a charming cobblestone alley within the royal capital's walls. Leif arrives at his destination, identifying the building as the Shooting Star Atelier. He blushes at the thought of being in their care for the foreseeable future. Peeking inside, he mentally notes to behave himself. Amid scattered garments and empty bottles, a young woman lies unconscious on a bed. A healer named Leif steps into the Shooting Star Atelier, announcing his presence. He moves deeper into the quiet shop, inquiring if anyone is around. His gaze is caught by a shelf filled with eerie, doll-like figures. Surveying the area, he quietly observes the bizarre tools scattered throughout the workshop. He approaches a back room, declaring his intent to enter and explore. As he slides the door open, a sudden rattling from within startles him. Peering inside, he is horrified to find a room buried beneath heaps of trash. The putrid odor assaults him as he grumbles about the filth and stench. Cautiously digging through a pile, he spots mold growing on a discarded bag. His hand unexpectedly brushes against something soft and strange hidden in the clutter. He retrieves a pair of women's lace underwear, his face turning beet red. From the trash heap, a blonde woman suddenly sits up, groaning about her hangover. Leaf stares, shocked and blushing, realizing his aunt's grandchild is a woman. Stumbling toward him, the hungover woman bluntly demands he fetch her some water. Though taken aback, he quickly complies, offering her a glass from a nearby table. She grabs the glass and eagerly downs the water in one swift gulp. With a sigh of relief, she exclaims how refreshing the water feels. Now fully awake, she glares at him, aggressively demanding to know his identity. She steps back defensively, accusing him of being a thief or worse. Her expression hardens as she cuts off his attempts to explain, dismissing them as excuses. She angrily points out that he's holding her underwear, calling it evidence of his guilt. She accuses him of breaking in, refusing to accept his claims of innocence. He nervously tries to clarify that the door wasn't even locked in the first place. Her aggressive stance falters, leaving her stunned and speechless by his assertion. She turns and cautiously navigates through the trash toward the door to check. With a groan of embarrassment, she admits she was probably too drunk to remember locking it. Leaf watches wide-eyed as she bends down to inspect the lock. As she leans over, he gets an unobstructed view, very plump from behind. Suddenly, she lets out a piercing scream, causing Leaf to scream in terror. He covers his face in embarrassment, questioning why she's the one screaming at him. Completely flustered, he yells at her, begging her to put on some clothes. She retorts angrily that it's her home, and he has no right to lecture her. He defends himself, explaining that entering an unlocked home is normal in the countryside. Their argument spills into the street as she yells at him to be quiet. Now properly dressed, Mercury Pendrogo sighs, wishing he had contacted her first. Leaf bows deeply, respectfully stating that he looks forward to her guidance. She acknowledges that her grandmother informed her about the struggles he has faced. After a moment's thought, she confirms his name, addressing him as Leaf. A confident smirk spreads across her face as she tells him he might be fortunate. She reveals that she too left her home behind to start anew here. Looking determined, she asserts that coming to the capital was the right decision. Gesturing toward the city, she explains it offers experiences he could never find at home. Here, she says, he can begin anew, free from the ties that held him back. She looks down at him and declares that from this moment on, he is free. He gazes up at her, a blush creeping onto his cheeks as he processes her words. He then expresses his eagerness to look after her for the time being. She agrees, explaining she must honor her grandmother's favor and offers him a place to stay. Leaning in with a curious smile, she asks what his next move will be. His face lights up with pure excitement as he declares his dream to become an adventurer. Ms. Mercury proposes introducing Leaf to the Adventurers Guild, a suggestion he finds ideal. With a satisfied smile, she observes him, thinking he appears genuinely kind. Later, at her workshop, Leaf sits at a counter, exhaling contentedly after a drink. Mercury watches him, reflecting that her grandmother has clearly taken a liking to the boy. Anticipating a monster from his village, she admits his ordinary looks are a letdown. Through her glasses, she sees his reflection, deeming him nothing more than average. As she turns away, she thinks his unremarkable demeanor actually benefits her plans. She declares her intention to head back to bed, leaving him to his own devices. Leaf cheerfully wishes her a good night, assuring her he can rest anywhere. His expression quickly turns serious as he surveys the room, a bead of sweat forming. He stares in shock at the chaotic scene, a room completely overwhelmed by clutter. With renewed determination, Leaf decides it's time to take action. The following morning, birds chirp serenely along the quiet street outside. Inside, Ms. Mercury stirs in her bed, blinking sleepily as she wakes up. Her eyes widen in disbelief as she sees her bedroom now spotless. Leaf appears at her door in an apron, greeting her with a cheerful good morning and offering breakfast. Initially, Mercury's face brightens with a blush as she happily accepts. Her gratitude vanishes instantly as she angrily demands to know why he cleaned her room. She cries in despair, covering her face and lamenting that she can't relax in a tidy room. Proclaiming she'd rather die, she frantically attempts to escape the pristine environment. She desperately begs Leaf to revert the room back to its previous state of mess. He bashfully explains he used a special detergent, transforming it into a sacred space. Stunned, Mercury can only mutter in disbelief, questioning his words. She asks if he refers to the legendary Holy Maiden Seyfried, which he quietly affirms. The astonishing revelation causes Miss Mercury to tremble with shock and growing dread. Her eye glows with power as she activates her unique ability, Mercury's Eye. Peering through her eyes, she sees a powerful shimmering barrier now shielding the room. She realizes with anguish that the barrier eternally repels both dirt and all monsters. Gazing at her now sanctified atelier, she screams that he must be from that village. Later, Leaf arrives at the Adventurers Guild, exclaiming a starstruck greeting. He stands in awe, absorbing the grandeur of the opulent hall of the Gemstone Guild. Spinning with excitement, he marvels at the soaring ceilings and stylish decor. He exclaims that joining such a fantastic guild feels like a dream realized. Meanwhile, Ms. Mercury watches with concern, wondering if this is a wise choice. She contemplates the repercussions if he gains fame, attracting unwanted local nuisances. The thought of her grandmother's reaction fills her with dread, certain it would be disastrous. In a panic, she starts to suggest that perhaps joining the guild isn't the best option. Leaf, however, turns with a bright smile, urging her to hurry with his registration. A close-up reveals his innocent, excited face, brimming with pure anticipation. Ms. Mercury grips her head in frustration, her attempt to dissuade him completely thwarted. She realizes she can't betray his hopes when he looks at her so innocently. Defeated, she follows as Leaf eagerly leads the way to the reception desk. A cheerful receptionist named Nina greets them, thanking Mercury for her earlier assistance. The two women exchange pleasantries, agreeing on the importance of mutual support. Ms. Mercury introduces Leaf, gesturing to the young boy standing beside her. She explains his desire to join the guild, asking Nina if she can manage it. Nina gazes intently at Leaf, her expression shifting as she sizes him up. Leaf looks back at her with wide-eyed, innocent confusion, unsure of her intense scrutiny. Suddenly, the receptionist is overwhelmed by a powerful infatuation, drooling heavily. She leans in close, inviting Leaf to accompany her to handle the paperwork. Nina, the guild receptionist, leans closer, confessing she's never completed this form before. She inches even nearer, reassuring the young adventurer not to fret and affectionately calling him Cutie Pie. With a bold move, she promises to teach him everything, playfully licking his ear. A stunned Leaf recoils, bewildered by the unexpected turn of events. Mercury, his guardian, steps in with irritation while Nina finds his innocent reaction charming. Unbothered, Nina explains that his ears simply look too tempting to resist. She then teasingly inquires if Mercury is also trying to win Leaf's heart. Mercury defensively asserts she's merely his caretaker, aiming to keep him safe. Changing the subject, Nina elaborates on the numerous guilds thriving in the lively royal capital. The Adventurers Guild stands out as the most esteemed, while Mercury quietly cautions Leaf about Nina. Most newcomers, she clarifies, find a guild that aligns with their skills and profession. Clutching the registration form, Nina finally asks Leaf to declare his profession. With pride, Leaf stands before her and proclaims he is a professional healer. The receptionist's friendly demeanor instantly crumbles into one of utter disbelief. She exclaims that a healer joining the Adventurers Guild is a disastrous choice. Mercury's piercing gaze confirms the truth. Healers aren't cut out for battle. Suddenly, Mercury appears, voicing her agreement with Nina, catching Leaf off guard. She shares her worries for his safety and strongly advises him to think twice. With tears brimming in his eyes, Leaf pleads to be an adventurer like his master. The sight of his innocent, tear-streaked face hits both women hard. Nina quickly changes her stance, vowing to fully support the weeping boy. Leaf watches, puzzled, as Nina points a finger, readying a new proposal. She announces that to join, he must first complete their unique trial. Nina then summons her familiar, a tiny creature, to step forward. Leaf's eyes widen in wonder as he observes the small being appear. She presents the tiny winged lizard-like familiar, cradled gently in her hands. A brief mana trial will be conducted using the little magical creature. Nina explains that the small familiar reacts to magic, changing hues based on mana. Inside a vast, empty arena, she states that the trial's rules are straightforward. Leaf must channel his magic into the creature to exceed a specific threshold. He eagerly consents, while Mercury observes from the stands, her expression anxious. The older witch grimaces, already feeling the weight of what might happen. She rationalizes that a mana trial is the safest option, as combat would be catastrophic. With intense determination, Leaf vows to give the trial his all. Mercury is taken aback by the sudden, overwhelming surge of power from Leaf. He asks Nina if the creature's color is the only thing that changes. She starts to explain that it might also grow, but is interrupted by the power surge. A massive dragon crashes through the guild's roof, unleashing a thunderous roar. Both Nina and Mercury stand utterly speechless at the astonishing sight. Down below, terrified onlookers recognize the beast as a dragon and flee. Just as abruptly as it appeared, the enormous dragon disappears in a flash of light. Amid the debris, Leaf wonders aloud what just transpired. He stands composed in the wreckage, clutching the shrunken familiar. Gazing up at the hole in the roof, he asks if he has succeeded in the trial. Nina rushes to him, her face flushed with affection as she confesses her feelings. She embraces him tightly, calling him the coolest, while Mercury sighs at her stress. The weary little familiar also gazes at Leaf with fondness, cooing its affection. The scene transitions to a serene view of Leaf's old home, Village Dead End. From inside a house, a voice yells, calling Leaf a coward and a fool. Okuran slams her hand on a desk, fuming that she intended to hire him. In her workshop, a young woman seethes, convinced that a rural medicine enthusiast will inevitably fail. The narrative rewinds, unveiling the origins of the Vosrock lineage. Okron's grandfather emerges as a valiant figure, defending villagers against marauding beasts. His valor earned him the title of Monster Warden of the North, symbolized by a grim trophy. In the current timeline, the opulent Lord Okuran cackles maniacally, enveloped in luxury. A menacing close-up captures his self-satisfied grin, hinting at his financial dominance. He contemplates the glass in his hand, reflecting on the power he holds over the territory. His mind wanders to manipulating medicine costs, fully aware that people will have no choice. Surrounded by maids, he raises a toast to his own clever and shrewd business acumen. He continues to boast, recounting his recent triumphs in seizing control of the territory. An attendant approaches, interrupting his self-satisfied tirade. The servant brings an urgent message from Ein Village regarding their defenses. Feigning ignorance, Okuran inquires about the village and its recent monster troubles. The attendant clarifies that Ein Village is perilously close to the monster-infested Abyss Forest. With a clenched fist, the servant conveys the village's desperate plea. Unmoved, Okron brushes off the request, claiming he's expecting a significant visitor. He coldly questions why he should care about a village that brings him no profit. Irritated by his servant's insistence, the Lord abruptly dismisses him. He shoves the stunned attendant out of his presence. As the dismissed man sits in despair, a new servant announces an arrival. The formidable guildmaster Jasmine Koo makes a striking entrance. Okuran greets his distinguished guest with exaggerated sycophantic courtesy. The visitor is revealed to be Jasmine Koo, master of the Silver Ping Association. He glances at her, his mind already plotting and admiring her presence. Internally, he is captivated by her timeless and stunning beauty. His thoughts reveal a determination to forge a powerful alliance with her. Confident in his business prowess, he readies himself to initiate negotiations. Jasmine cuts to the chase, announcing her intention to sever all ties. Stunned into silence, Lord Okuran can only seek clarification. He leaps from his chair, panicked, pleading for her to pause and explain. Losing his composure, he angrily demands to know why she made this choice. She calmly explains that he has offended someone to whom she owes a significant debt. Jasmine specifies that her debt is to an elderly individual from Devon Village. She expresses her disappointment that he acted against the village she supported. Frantically, Okuran plays his trump card, his marriage to Asclepius's granddaughter. He argues that cutting ties with the village will undoubtedly harm her interests as well. Jasmine coolly reveals she knows the granddaughter was also engaged to a man named Leaf. Moreover, she mentions that the village elders were very fond of that young man. The horrifying truth hits Okuran. That brat was a pivotal figure. He immediately throws himself to the ground, begging for forgiveness for his actions. Pressing his face to the floor, he desperately implores for another opportunity. Jasmine remains aloof, telling him that an apology to her holds no value. She presents a single route to redemption. The villagers must forgive him. From his prostrate position, Okuran quickly consents to her terms. Inwardly, however, he scoffs at her perceived innocence and lack of experience. He believes his feigned submission is the solution to all his problems. He reaffirms his belief that his grand ambitions will not conclude here. Suddenly, his daughter Dukuna bursts in, cheerfully calling out to him. She loudly proposes they exploit the foolish villagers by hiking prices fivefold. Lord Okuran's face twists in a silent scream of utter horror. Guildmaster Jasmine Koo coolly dismisses Lord Okuran, bidding him a final, permanent farewell. As she turns away, her decision is clear. She strides confidently toward the exit. She declares her intention to discuss future finances directly with Sir Arthur from Dead End. Lord Ocaran crumples to the floor, engulfed in despair, while his daughter remains indifferent. Oblivious to the chaos, his daughter asks if he's even paying attention. Fury boiling inside him, Lord Ocaran clenches his fists, directing his anger at his daughter. His hand rises to strike. Her foolishness has shattered his last shred of patience. With a sharp slap, he hits her, shouting that she's a foolish woman. His daughter stares, wide-eyed in shock, unable to comprehend the sudden violence. Furious, she grabs her father's collar, yelling that this is all his fault. He screams that her stupidity has ruined his vital deal, insisting she must take the blame. Their argument escalates into a cacophony of shouts, insults flying as furniture topples. An attendant interrupts with news of a messenger, but Al-Quran threatens to dismiss him. Calmly, the attendant prepares to deliver his urgent message, undeterred by the threat. He reports a massive horde of monsters has invaded their territory via Ain Village. A terrifying army of monstrous bears, wolves, and insects marches forward relentlessly. Lord Ocarina's daughter trembles in sheer terror at the dreadful news. Meanwhile, the witch Dequona stares in disbelief, questioning what on earth is happening. She finds Leaf being spoiled by monster girls eager to help him enjoy himself. Leaf innocently explains to Dakota that the girls were just asking about his home village. In a quiet moment, Leaf's expression shifts to serious and contemplative as he looks away. He confides in Dequona, voicing his worries about the monster repellent left behind. Gazing over the city, he hopes his friend Equona is safe. Having passed his trial, Leaf is now officially an adventurer embarking on a new journey. Dakota admits her initial concerns as Leaf dashes ahead, brimming with energy. He expresses great relief that their first official task is merely to gather medical herbs. The young adventurer cheekily suggests he'd prefer hunting an ancient dragon instead. Duckwina, looking unwell, questions if she should really join him while nursing a hangover. She angrily explains that she drank to forget the immense stress he caused her. She sternly reminds him that beginners must team up, so he's stuck with her. Dukawana clarifies that all new adventurers in their guild start at the bottom F rank. Leaf is initially puzzled by the ranking system, his enthusiastic demeanor faltering. A diagram illustrates the guild's ranks, climbing from F to the elite SS rank. Fueled by the challenge, Leaf passionately vows to quickly elevate his rank. Dakota warns him not to underestimate the difficulty of the herb-gathering quest. She explains that identifying the correct medical herbs is incredibly challenging. Reaching into the underbrush, she points out a particularly troublesome plant. Holding two nearly identical sprigs, she explains that the poisonous one is hard to identify. As she speaks, Leaf casually announces he's done, having amassed a huge pile. Dequana stares at the enormous collection of herbs, exclaiming she knew this would happen. Leaf puffs out his chest with pride, claiming he's been trained for this since childhood. She asks how he managed to distinguish all the medical herbs from the poison. With a bright, innocent grin, Leaf reveals his secret. He simply calls for them. Dukawana is left utterly baffled by his nonsensical explanation of his ability. To prove his point, Leaf stands, claps his hands, and calls for the herbs to come to him. In the field, a single plant begins to twitch and move on its own in response. Another herb uproots itself and hops through the tall grass toward the young healer. All the plants nearby start to gather around him, leaving Dequona astonished. She grabs a sweating leaf, demanding to know what he just did to the plants. She yells that she can't calm down, wanting to know what kind of magic he used. With a shy chuckle, Leaf discloses his unique talent for conversing with plants. Ms. Mercury, the witch accompanying him, listens with a look of deep skepticism. He shares that his mentor taught him to hear the voices of the flora. As he picks a sprig, memories of learning their language flood back. Cradling the herb, he nostalgically recalls his master's cherished lessons. Mercury's eyes widen in disbelief, taken aback by the earnestness of his claim. She exhales sharply, her frustration with the situation evident. Then she picks a plant herself, commenting on the quirks of Hero Village. Kneeling, she brings the leafy herb close and inhales deeply. A sudden wave of dizziness washes over her, and she blames it on a hangover. The young healer calmly points out that she's smelling an aphrodisiac. A close-up captures her eyes, widening in horror as realization dawns. She drops the plant, quietly acknowledging her embarrassing blunder with a simple oops. For a brief moment, she stands frozen, disbelief etched on her face. A small poof signals her blush, heat radiating from her cheeks. Clutching herself, she complains that her body feels uncomfortably warm. A concerned Leaf gently taps her shoulder, inquiring if she's okay. Overcome by nausea, she cries out, announcing her urge to vomit. They make their way back to the grand, bustling hall of the Adventurers Guild. The receptionist Nina greets them with an enthusiastic wave. A flustered Mercury fidgets, insisting nothing happened when Nina inquires. Nina eagerly probes about the commotion, sensing the frantic atmosphere. Upon hearing about a rampaging venomous hydra, Mercury's alarm spikes. She questions how a supposedly docile S-level monster could pose such a threat. Nina turns to Leaf, whose face peeks out from behind her large frame. With desperation in her eyes, she begs for his medicine to assist them. In a flash, Leaf unveils a table brimming with potions, declaring his work complete. Nina expresses her gratitude, proclaiming her admiration for his speed and talent. The young healer stands nervously before the two women, uncertain of his role. He fidgets, doubting that a newcomer like him could be of any help. With bright eyes, he eagerly asks if he can assist with the mission. Nina beams with joy, while Mercury regards him with a weary expression. As they head to the front lines, Mercury feels another wave of nausea. They reach the large temporary base set up for the subjugation troops. Inside the medical tent, injured soldiers are being brought in on stretchers. An injured soldier watches in awe as his hand glows with potent healing. He marvels at the incredible regenerative power that healed his wound instantly. Immediately, a man calls from across the tent, requesting Leaf's assistance. Observing him work, Mercury admits she's relieved he chose to come. She confesses she hadn't anticipated facing so many injuries. On a nearby table, medical supplies are meticulously organized for the wounded. A commander expresses profound gratitude for Leaf's life-saving help. Pointing at a map, he outlines the Hydra's relentless path toward the capital. The commander adds that other aggressive creatures are gathering nearby. He glances away, anxiously wishing for reinforcements to arrive soon. A sudden powerful shockwave ripples through the command tent, startling everyone. Outside, the waiting troops erupt in cheers as a new party arrives. The leader, Ariel Shamprode, calmly apologizes for his group's tardiness. His companion, Yorotan's Road, suggests they simply defeat the monster and feast. Another party member, Mab Yiga, eagerly agrees, declaring his hunger for meat. Reinforcements arrive to a roaring crowd, a voice proclaiming that victory is assured. The onlooker's anticipation grows as he spots the legendary hero Ariel, ready to battle the Hydra. A young boy named Leaf, unfamiliar with the scene, observes with a touch of doubt. Next to him, Ms. Mercury cynically labels the newcomers as the Freak Squad from Sacred Gemstone. Ariel, the party's leader, announces the name Twilight Dragon, a renowned S-ranked group. Leaf blushes in awe, realizing he stands among S-rank adventurers. The kanji on their jackets signifies their status as the pinnacle of all adventurers. With admiration sparkling in his eyes, Leaf thinks about how incredibly cool they are. Out of nowhere, Ariel surprises the boy with a friendly pat on the shoulder. The imposing leader inquires about the guild the unfamiliar boy belongs to. Ariel leans in, demanding to know who Leaf is affiliated with, leaving the boy stunned. The flustered Leaf nervously admits he has no guild affiliation. Ariel's fierce expression shifts to one of surprise and sudden realization. With a newfound look of approval, he tells Leaf he's not too shabby. He correctly identifies the boy as Leaf, which clarifies everything. The hero reveals that the guild receptionist informed him of Leif's efforts to aid the injured. Kneeling with a confident grin, Ariel sincerely thanks Leaf for his assistance. Leaf gazes up, completely starstruck and blushing from the unexpected compliment. Ms. Mercury comments on how quickly the S-rank adventurer recognized Leaf's potential. A member of Twilight Dragon, a cheerful blonde swordsman, greets Ms. Mercury. She clarifies that Leaf is still an F-rank and that she acts as his guardian. Another party member stomps in annoyance, grumbling about the guild's strict regulations. Overwhelmed with admiration, Leif eagerly asks Ariel how he can become as strong as him. Ariel starts to respond, but his focus is suddenly drawn to a new commotion. A wave of alarm sweeps through the camp as a colossal threat approaches. A gigantic, monstrous ant crashes into the base, looming over the adventurers. As chaos ensues, a young girl named Sen collapses in fear. A Twilight Dragon member unsheathes their sword, ready to confront the beast. She watches helplessly, her face a mask of terror, as she cries out for help. Her desperate call hangs in the air, lost amidst the chaos. Another hero springs into action, deftly dodging the ant's lunging strike. The blonde swordsman shouts words of encouragement to his whip-wielding ally. With a sharp crack, the whip user confirms they've successfully ensnared the creature. The team works together, using their whips to restrain the thrashing beast. Ariel looks down at the captured creature, expressing his disdain for the common insect. His face contorts with rage as he vows that anyone who harms his friends will not survive. He clenches his powerful fist, poised to deliver a crushing final blow. With a cool flick of his hand through his hair, he readies himself for the strike. He dismisses the formidable creature as nothing more than a minor nuisance. Leif watches, deeply impressed by their flawless teamwork and profound trust. He realizes he's witnessing what a true party dynamic should look like. After the skirmish, Ariel concedes he may have overdone it, but his team remains unfazed. He approaches Leif, recalling the boy's question about how to emulate them. The hero explains that their strength lies in teamwork, forged through unwavering trust. Clenching his fist, he prepares to unveil the bizarre secret behind their bond. He exclaims that their method involves openly sharing their personal quirks. His blonde teammate eagerly confesses his own peculiar preference. The red-haired woman adds her dark secret with a mischievous, blushing smile. Ariel passionately shouts out his own shocking preference. With a calm demeanor, he concludes that true trust is built on sharing secrets. Mab leans in aggressively, insisting that a flustered Yogu reveal his secret desires. Another member of the group points a finger, questioning Yogu's unusual interests. Yogu's eyes swirl in confusion as he hesitates before finally speaking up. He passionately exclaims his attraction to women with ample curves. Mab smiles slightly, finding the boy's confession satisfactory. Now pleased, Mab gathers his team, declaring their quest for the Hydra is underway. The scene transitions to a deep, jagged ravine slicing through a barren terrain. At the bottom, the remains of armored knights lie scattered among the stones. A solitary survivor clutches his gauntlet, fervently praying for rescue. A monstrous serpent slithers into view, disregarding the knight's pleas. The last knight watches in horror, sweat trickling down his helmet. He despairs, questioning how anyone could hope to defeat such a beast. In a thick jungle, a toucan announces that they have arrived at the legendary site. Mab's group steps into the Valley of Death, noting the eerie absence of life. The leader's face is serious and intent as they proceed. The witch and a swordsman tread carefully along the overgrown trail. Yogu yells as the ground beneath him suddenly fractures. The crumbling cliff edge threatens to send him into the void. A blonde teammate observes, commenting on the unforeseen peril. Back from the brink, Yogu reflects on his near-death experience. The witch explains that this valley was created during a historic war. The red-haired woman jests with the blonde swordsman about the dangerous drop. Checking a map, the witch verifies they are on the correct route. She notes that the valley dangerously approaches the royal capital. Both Mab and Yogu pause, sniffing the air for a familiar scent. Mab acknowledges that Yogu has also detected the scent of their target. With determination, Mabe asserts that their quarry is nearby. Peering into the chasm, he declares the Hydra lurks just below. The blonde swordsman is astonished that they have located the Hydra's den. He warns against jumping down recklessly without more information. He then suggests using his telepathy to keep in touch with the scout. Mab firmly interrupts, stating he will descend himself. His teammates gasp in shock as he steps off the cliff. They watch in disbelief as their leader falls into the shadows. Mab lands heavily at the bottom of the deep ravine. He rises amidst the crumbling debris, brushing himself off. Gazing up at the towering cliffs, he realizes the climb back will be tough. He shifts his focus to the grim tableau spread out before him. He discovers the bodies of knights strewn across the valley floor. Kneeling beside one of the fallen, he inspects the body closely. He finds a sacred gemstone dog tag and curses in frustration. His face contorts with rage as he vows to make the beast pay. He sits among the fallen, pondering the cause of the devastation. A voice from the shadows greets him casually. Mab inquires if the creature is the one responsible for the knight's slaughter. The massive Hydra towers over him as he defiantly calls out its name. Mab gestures mockingly, challenging the creature to a duel. The Hydra accepts his challenge for a one-on-one confrontation. He charges ahead, delivering a powerful punch aimed at the monster's head. He retracts his steaming fist, sensing that the impact felt oddly off. An unseen force deflects his punch, prompting him to call the Hydra a coward. Usado's sharp gaze reveals the creature is cloaked in a thick layer of poison. His face hardens as he embraces the challenge, declaring he's okay with this twist. He stomps, cracking the ground beneath him, vowing to tear off the poison armor. The Hydra coils react as Usato proclaims his special technique, Divine Love and Death Style. Activating his 750 cubic centimeter ability, he races up the monster's colossal form with astonishing speed. With fierce determination, he shouts for the beast to move as he approaches. Perched on the creature, he readies himself to unleash the final segment of his powerful move. He confidently claims the attack is simple as he unleashes his devastating Helix Fist. A colossal burst of light and energy erupts from the impact, ripping through the chasm. The Hydra's form starts to disintegrate, crumbling like parched earth after the blow. Clenching his fist, he realizes, just like before, he felt no solid impact. His brow furrows in confusion as he senses something is deeply amiss. From the collapsing form, a pained voice calls out the name Yogu. A new voice emerges from the disintegrating head, asking if he is Leaf. Usato's eyes widen in shock and confusion at the monster's unexpected inquiry. A tiny winged creature suddenly leaps from the debris, leaving him utterly perplexed. He tries to make sense of it, recalling that talking hydras, like ancient dragons, exist. Despite his logical attempts, a single troubling thought lingers in his mind. Gazing at the monster, he wonders why it knows his comrade Leaf's name. The reformed hydra's enormous eye fixates on the fighters below. Its throat swells and glows, gathering energy for a catastrophic attack. A high-pressure stream of liquid bursts from its mouth as Usato identifies it as venom. While dodging, he mocks his teammate, taunting her poor aim as her attack misses. An exhausted Suzune lies face down, having exhausted her remaining strength. Usato grits his teeth in frustration, muttering that he can't afford to be hit. He rushes to his fallen comrade's side, determined to shield her from further harm. Clicking his tongue in irritation, he focuses on the imminent threat from the Hydra. Cursing his luck, he continues to dodge the barrage of venomous projectiles. He catches the collapsing Suzune, forcing a strained grin, noting it was a close call. Shielding her with his body, he takes another hit from a blast of venom. The weekend, Suzune insists she must ensure he returns home safely. Suddenly, his leg gives way as he realizes he has been struck. Reeling from the poison's effects, he curses his blunder with a look of despair. The Hydra looms over the defenseless duo, poised to deliver a final crushing blow. Once more, the monster's throat swells, amassing a tremendous amount of venom. It unleashes a torrent of poison directly at the two downed fighters. Engulfed by the attack, he grimly reflects on his significant miscalculation. He grimaces, acknowledging to himself that he truly messed up this time. A massive wall of earth erupts, blocking the venomous spray with a thunderous crash. Usato peers up from behind the new barricade, his eyes wide with astonishment. Leaf stands behind the barrier, announcing his arrival to assist his comrade. With a determined look, he vows to contribute his share for the team. The chapter title appears as Leaf stands ready to confront the colossal Hydra. His expression is serious and focused as he prepares to face the enormous beast. The Hydra's reptilian eye narrows, fixating intently on the small healer. Usato shouts a warning from the side, yelling that the monster is charging. The Hydra lunges forward, smashing the ground with tremendous force, sending debris flying. Leaf dashes toward the beast, determined to be the first to strike. He shouts that he can handle the poison and must be the one to attack. Usato calls out to Leaf, worried after he gets grazed by venom. Claiming he's fine, Leaf charges at the monster to prove himself. Disregarding Usato's warning about the futility of his strikes, Leaf readies his drug-making skill. A surge of power courses through his arm as he channels a potent muscle enhancer. Soaring through the air, Leaf delivers a devastating megaton punch to the beast. His fist splashes uselessly against the Hydra's liquid form, failing to land a solid hit. The young healer expresses disbelief at the bizarre lack of impact. In a swift motion, the Hydra's enormous tail swats him from the sky. From afar, Usato observes the scene with a suddenly enlightened look. The monster's tail lashes through the air after striking the falling healer. A massive wall of earth erupts from the ground, intercepting an incoming strike. The hastily constructed barrier begins to crumble under the Hydra's relentless onslaught. With incredible speed, Usato races across the shattered terrain to assist his ally. Catching Leaf mid-fall, he brushes off the thanks, claiming he owes him instead. He explains that Leaf's reckless charge helped him uncover the monster's secret. Leaning in, Usato urges Leaf to pay close attention to his vital discovery. Hiding behind rocks, he reveals that the creature is a venomous Hydra existing in a liquid form. Leaf quickly processes this, explaining that magic holds the monster's form together. With a flash of understanding, he realizes why their physical attacks have failed. Usato grimly acknowledges that his fighting style is poorly suited for this opponent. Considering a new approach, Leaf's expression shifts to one of quiet contemplation. His comrades suggest that a healer like him might have the skills needed to win. Leaning closer, Usato asks if Leaf possesses any special trick that could work. The young healer ponders the nature of a creature composed entirely of venom. His eyes narrow in focus as he realizes the key to overcoming their unusual foe. He begins to articulate his new strategy, starting with the Hydra's venomous nature. As the monster looms, he concludes that an antidote is their best shot at victory. A silent agreement passes between them as they commit to the risky new plan. A nearby boulder shatters, reminding them of the imminent danger. Springing into action, Usato enthusiastically announces his intent to execute the new strategy. Leaf shouts his agreement, vowing to give it his all as Usato cheers him on. Tapping his friend's chest, Usato tells his comrade, who loves big breasts, that he's counting on him. The nimble fighter propels himself into the air, starting his role as a decoy. Clenching his fist, he taunts the Hydra, demanding its full attention. He crashes down powerfully, yelling at the giant to focus on him. Nimbly leaping between floating rocks, he diverts the monster's attacks away from Leaf. The large stone platforms serve as his high-speed stepping stones as he dodges and weaves. His movements blur, creating the perfect distraction for his partner's preparations. The now two-headed Hydra turns, both sets of eyes locking onto the distracting fighter. Perched on a rock, Usato offers a taunting hint to the bewildered little Hydra. One of the Hydra's heads glances away, seemingly questioning if Leaf is the real target. With a confident smirk, Usato warns the distracted monster to keep an eye on his back. Leaf descends from above, shouting a defiant challenge at the oversized serpent. Usato flicks his coat, swatting a Hydra head aside to create a clear opening. Plunging his glowing staff into the beast, Leaf unleashes a potent antidote spell. A massive column of brilliant white light erupts, engulfing the entire canyon. The aftermath leaves a cloud of smoke and debris lingering in the air. As the light fades, Leaf and Usato stand together amidst the settling dust. Onlookers mutter in disbelief, finding the outcome of their all-out attack impossible. They stare in shock as the Hydra remains unscathed, questioning why the antidote failed. Alongside Ariel, the young healer Leaf quietly watches the strange, seemingly invincible creature. The massive Hydra towers over them as Leaf identifies the corrupting force as miasma. He remembers his master's teachings about an enemy once rendered immune to harm. Leaf informs the astonished Ariel that a demon is likely manipulating events from the shadows. With this revelation, Ariel realizes it clarifies much about their predicament. He recalls that Hydras are typically peaceful and don't attack humans like this. Gazing at the tainted beast, he realizes the miasma is the final piece of the puzzle. They both sense the imminent threat, knowing the creature will eventually reach the capital. In a moment of urgency, Ariel asks Leaf if there's any way to halt its advance. Leaf averts his gaze, sweat beading on his forehead as he weighs their options. His mind races back to his mentor, questioning the seemingly impossible lesson he learned. In a flashback, his mentor teasingly challenges the limits of healing against miasma. The mentor's demeanor shifts to serious, promising that while incurable, victory is possible. He begins to explain that all medicine stems from the wisdom of their ancestors. The master gestures, indicating that anyone could wield medicine if given the chance. Facing the Hydra, Leaf recalls his mentor's final lesson: a true healer must see beyond. His teammates arrive in the chasm and their leader, Ariel, peers down at him. With renewed resolve in his eyes, Leaf looks up, ready to set his plan in motion. The group rushes down to join him, shouting their concerns for their leader's safety. From the chasm's depths, Leaf calls out to his team leader by name. With his back turned, he asserts that surrendering is not an option yet. He turns with a confident grin, declaring he has discovered their path to victory. His exhausted team gathers around, listening closely as he prepares to share his strategy. Ariel steels himself, accepting that their situation has become a matter of survival. In the distance, the enormous Hydra hisses ominously, waiting for their next move. The team gears up for action, asking Leaf what plan he has concocted. Standing before them, Leaf states he has a request for everyone. With a bright smile, he cheerfully instructs them to flee all the way to the capital. The entire team is left speechless by his utterly unexpected command. His teammates question the absurd plan as Leaf begins to lead the retreat. He promises to clarify everything later, urging them to follow as he dashes away. The red-haired woman watches him leave, puzzled by his strange order to escape. She expresses her disbelief, asking if running away is truly their only option. Suddenly, Ariel unleashes a powerful explosive attack on the nearby canyon wall. With a look of sudden clarity, he shouts that their real task is to create chaos. A series of explosions rocks the valley as the team generates a loud distraction. Ariel glances back, having placed his full trust in the young healer's strange plan. He leaves the rest of the battle to Leaf, who now confronts the Hydra alone. The young healer stands firm, his expression steeling as he readies for the clash. The massive Hydra fixes its cold reptilian gaze on the solitary boy before it. Leaf's own stare is sharp and focused, tracking the monster's every subtle move. He plants his foot firmly, cracking the ground as he braces for action. With astonishing speed, he dodges jets of venom shot by the pursuing beast. The Hydra emits a frustrated roar as its venomous strikes splash harmlessly around him. It lunges forward, intent on capturing the small, agile figure in its massive jaws. The monster roars at Leaf not to flee as it swiftly slithers in pursuit. Meanwhile, massive explosions from the diversion team continue to reverberate through the valley. High above, the witch observes the battle, flying through the air with a look of irritation. A teammate relays Leaf's message, asking her to keep an eye on the Hydra from her position. The witch reacts with annoyance as the messenger quickly departs, leaving her with the task. From her elevated position, the witch grumbles that none of them know how to treat a lady. Deep in the chasm, the Hydra ponders its perplexing strategy and ultimate aim. With fierce determination, Leaf confronts the monsters, his rage echoing. His scheme officially kicks off as he gets ready to act in the rocky valley. Believing his plan is flawless, Leaf launches the first cloth bundle. He hurls the rolled cloth high into the air towards the chasing monster. The Hydra counters his action, launching a glob of venom at the bundle. The observing witch is perplexed, questioning the purpose of such a simple cloth. She realizes that this flimsy item won't deter the raging Hydra. Disregarding the effort as futile, the monster easily crushes the cloth. Unfazed, Leaf proclaims he has more traps prepared for the colossal beast. The Hydra effortlessly obliterates another cloth bundle set by the young healer. It mocks Leaf, insisting that trying again won't alter the result. As explosions echo, the witch concludes he's merely stalling. She starts to doubt if he even has a genuine plan. Suddenly, a realization strikes her, changing her expression. She wonders if his real aim is just to buy time after all. In the distance, another powerful explosion signals the diversion team at work. A soft hissing fills the air as tension escalates in the valley. Leaf stands firm, awaiting the Hydra's next move with quiet assurance. Towering over the boy, the massive creature declares this is the end. It laughs, offering patronizing praise to the small healer. With a piercing gaze, Leaf remains completely still, focused on his foe. The Hydra reveals its intent to eliminate him with its deadliest venom. The observing witch trembles in fear, recognizing the grave threat Leaf now faces. She realizes this next assault is on an entirely different scale. The power surging within the monster is on a whole new level. She notes it's far more lethal than any venom it has used previously. She worries that even Leaf's remarkable resistance may not suffice. The monster unleashes a colossal, overwhelming torrent of its ultimate attack. Desperately, the witch prays for a miracle to save the boy below. She dives toward the valley floor, hoping to reach him in time. Her eyes widen in horror as she screams Leaf's name in panic. The powerful stream of venom crashes to the ground with a sickening splash. The witch watches, her face a mask of shock and disbelief. She can hardly believe her eyes as the Hydra begins to laugh. The monster roars in victory, convinced it has finally triumphed. It boasts loudly about having finally dealt with the troublesome healer. In the aftermath, the pool of venom ripples where Leaf once stood. Yet Leaf remains unscathed, calmly informing the beast its venom is ineffective. Both the monster and the witch stare in utter bewilderment. The Hydra demands to know how he could have possibly survived its assault. A confident smirk spreads across Leaf's face as he faces the creature. He reveals that the cloth pieces it crashed through were actually filters. A memory resurfaces of his master's lesson on crafting filters from natural materials. He recalls being taught that understanding resources is crucial for developing medicine. He explains that a highly viscous venom like the Hydra's is susceptible. Its impure toxic components would be filtered out almost instantly. He asserts that the Hydra's potent venom lost its effectiveness due to his filtering. The Hydra's eyes widen in sheer shock and utter confusion at this revelation. A woman's glasses mirror her complete bewilderment at the recent happenings. The massive Hydra emits a final wail of shock as its form fractures. Its resilient, scaly exterior shatters entirely, dissolving into a cloud of particles. Amidst the debris, a solitary figure strides forward, proudly noting the successful capture. Ariel stands with his companions, proclaiming the chasm a flawless prison for the beast. Next to him, the young healer Leaf wears a small, content smile. The whole team rejoices in their triumph, exclaiming that their strategy succeeded flawlessly. With a beaming face, Leaf declares the situation resolved, showcasing the shrunken Hydra. He gazes at the diminutive creature in the jar, appreciating its newfound convenience. Startled, Leaf glances up as Ariel suddenly appears, reaching for the jar. Ariel glares at the tiny beast, calling it a despicable creature. Another teammate shakes the jar vigorously, demanding the creature atone for its deeds. The tiny, terrified Hydra quivers in the jar, as its fate is deliberated. Ms. Mercury proposes taking the creature to her workshop for further examination. She explains it might yield crucial insights into the enigmatic miasma. Leaf listens closely, grasping the significance of her remarks. At their campsite, a lookout joyfully announces the hero's return. Ariel addresses the gathering, recognizing the tough battle and their numerous losses. His fist tightens as he readies himself to inspire the troops. He fervently states that their bravery safeguarded the royal capital from danger. Looking ahead, he declares a grand feast to celebrate everyone's efforts. The entire camp erupts in a thunderous cheer, eager to commemorate their victory. Around a roaring bonfire, adventurers laud the remarkable strength of Ariel's group, Twilight Dragon. Others raise their glasses to the heroes, wishing they could match their greatness. Ariel hushes the crowd, revealing that his party isn't the true hero. He dramatically gestures to Leaf, announcing him as the key to their success. The leader explains that without Leaf, his own team would have surely perished. Cheers erupt for Leaf as the crowd chants his name, celebrating him as a hero. A blushing Leaf finds himself surrounded by admirers, overwhelmed by the sudden acclaim. Later that night, the lively camp falls silent beneath a starry sky. Leaf is discovered hiding alone on a balcony, seeking a moment of solitude. Ariel approaches him with a drink, inquiring if he's enjoying the festivities. The young alchemist humbly asserts that their success stemmed from teamwork. He confesses his fatigue, explaining he's never experienced such gratitude before. With a knowing grin, Ariel absorbs the young man's heartfelt words. He then surprises Leaf by inviting him to join his party, Twilight Dragon. Gazing at the moon, Ariel admits that fighting alongside Leaf revealed his party's inexperience. He commends Leaf's battlefield strategy, stating it would greatly enhance their team. Leaf listens wide-eyed as Ariel explains they could ascend to greatness together. Extending his hand, the party leader promises they could strive for even greater achievements. The young hero stands speechless, a deep blush spreading across his cheeks. Ariel beams confidently, asking Leaf how he feels about the remarkable offer. Before the renowned adventurer, Leaf expresses his overwhelming joy at the invitation. But with a bright grin, he reveals he has just discovered a new dream to chase. A surprised Ariel listens as Leaf declares he also aspires to achieve greatness. He explains that as a low-ranking adventurer, joining now would feel undeserved. With newfound resolve, Leaf announces his goal to reach S-rank independently. He aims to create the world's strongest party to fight alongside Ariel as an equal. With a confident and sincere smile, he declares that this is his new aspiration. Ariel's fist tightens, a gesture of respect for the boy's ambition. A hand tightens into a fist, filled with resolve. Ariel beams widely, hinting that this twist makes them rivals. With a confident smirk, he asserts he won't back down. Leaf observes him, a calm, knowing smile gracing his lips. They fist bump, Leaf eagerly accepting the friendly challenge. The focus shifts to Miss Mercury's workshop, where an investigation unfolds. In the messy workshop, Leaf cheerfully announces that the food is ready. He inquires if Mercury has found anything, but she admits she hasn't. She shares that she feels a connection to the Hydra, yet can't pinpoint it. As she holds the jar, she ponders the odd nature of the miasma. She suspects demonic influence, but finds her usual methods ineffective. Tapping the jar, she questions why a Hydra was used for an attack. A conspiracy seems to be brewing just out of her reach. Her thoughts drift as she gazes intently at the specimen in the jar. Suddenly, a frantic psychic cry for help bursts forth from the tiny Hydra. A silent scream for rescue resonates from within the glass. Mercury jumps, startled by the unexpected mental intrusion. Then, a massive explosion tears through the workshop, shaking the city. The wall of the building is blown apart, leaving chaos in its wake. Amidst the debris, Mercury and Leaf are thrown to the ground, coughing. Leaf rushes to her, asking if she's all right. On the floor, the shattered jar lies empty. The Hydra has disappeared. A faint plume of smoke drifts away over the city rooftops. A hawk watches the aftermath from high above the city. The bird emits a sharp cry as it glides through the sky. In the distance, a cloaked figure observes the Hydra's vanishing while sucking on a lollipop. The demon Loki finds it amusing that humans manage to defeat the miasma-infused creature. With a manic laugh, Loki expresses admiration for the humans' unexpected success. Loki then gasps, realizing the healer involved also rescued a woman named Diane. They mock their companion, claiming a low-ranking demon stood no chance against him. Receiving no reply, the demon calls out to their quiet companion, Nakia. A hand seizes Loki's companion, who tells him not to ignore him. Nakia is revealed, glaring with intense hatred, calling Lith a vile healer. Peering into a crystal ball, he vows to deal with the Leaf chemist. He clenches his fist, swearing that Leaf will meet his demise at his hands. Later, in a city cafe, rumors swirl about a string of abductions. Two women discuss the alarming news that only young women are vanishing. They note that victims are never found, just a bloodstain left behind. At a nearby table, Leaf and Mercury listen as the women agree to stay alert. Leaf notices Mercury's distant look and softly calls her name. Holding a large mug, she burps as Leaf questions her excessive drinking. She snaps back, saying she wants to drown her sorrows over her ruined atelier. Furiously, she yells at Leaf to be quiet, brushing off his concern. She laments her inability to uncover the truth about the miasma or the demons. Leaf glances around, shifting the topic to the diverse crowd in the capital. He notes how different the city is compared to his secluded home village. An adventurer nearby explains that the capital hosts many different races. Leaf is filled with awe upon hearing about even more elusive beings. He is astonished to learn about the existence of mysterious insect people. Brimming with excitement, Leaf expresses his strong desire to meet them one day. Ms. Mercury, a witch sporting a wide-brimmed hat, longs for everyone to embrace a more accepting attitude. A harsh voice suddenly slices through the atmosphere, branding someone as a talentless loser. A blonde adventurer threatens to kick a trembling young man named Brams out of their group. Bram, overwhelmed by fear, sweats heavily and repeatedly apologizes for his supposed shortcomings. His fellow party members cruelly mock his groveling, finding his humiliation utterly amusing. From his table, Leaf delivers a final venomous insult. "You wretched monster." His gaze sharpens, his expression hardening as he witnesses the public display of cruelty. Ms. Mercury warns him to steer clear of such a messy situation. As she continues her warning, she suddenly notices Leaf has already risen to intervene. Leaf stands over the bully, his stance firm as he demands an apology. He questions how they could treat a fellow party member with such blatant disrespect. The bully, not recognizing Leaf, aggressively asks if he's looking for a fight. Brams desperately attempts to calm the situation, begging them not to fight over him. Ignoring Brams, Leaf reiterates his demand for an apology with unwavering intensity. The bully's eyes widen in fury, taken aback by the smaller boy's bold interference. With a dismissive grin, he accepts the challenge, cracking his knuckles in readiness. He charges forward with a fierce rush, shouting his intent to show Leaf who's in charge. In a flash, the charging bully collapses into a deep, comical slumber mid-attack. The street is now strewn with the peacefully sleeping forms of the bullies. Bram panics, asking what just happened, but Leaf calmly reassures him they're merely asleep. Stunned, Bram asks where Leaf plans to take them now. Leaf simply turns to him, offering a gentle smile that invites him to follow. At a nearby restaurant, a lavish feast is laid out for the Estonian Brams. Leaf encourages him to indulge, insisting that money is no concern. He expresses his worry, having noticed Bram's rough skin and gaunt cheeks. With a healer's discerning eye, he diagnoses Bram as severely malnourished. He cheerfully promises to provide some stomach medicine after the meal. Bram looks down at the table, his response a quiet, dejected murmur. A deep gloom envelops him as he expresses a haunting wish to die. He murmurs in disbelief that someone as useless as him is receiving such kindness. His spiraling self-hatred continues as he labels himself a worthless waste of space. Bram clarifies that his pale complexion isn't due to malnourishment. He reveals his sharp fangs, confirming his shocking identity as a vampire. Both Leaf and Ms. Mercury are completely taken aback by this unexpected revelation. Leaf recalls that vampires are a rare race supposedly on a path to extinction. Ms. Mercury questions how he can be out in the sun, a known weakness for vampires. Bram quietly admits he's a special case due to his mixed blood. He begins to share his difficult past, starting with his upbringing in a vampire village. His race's obsession with blood purity led to daily harsh treatment. Even after escaping to the capital, he feels he has no true place to belong. He points to the earlier bullying as evidence, saying he can't blame them. He resigns himself to being worthless, convinced his life lacks purpose. Turning away, he warns Leaf to keep his distance, lest he share the same fate. Leaf suddenly blurts out a heartfelt request, asking Brams to be his friend. Utterly shocked, Brams can only manage a single word in response. Leaf passionately insists that he doesn't care about Bram's race. He explains that he sees Bram's kindness and how he always takes the blame. Leaf declares that he finds this trait incredibly admirable and respects him for it. He gazes at Brams with pure sincerity, expressing his genuine wish for friendship. He asks if it would be all right for them to become friends. Leaf beams with a gentle, innocent smile radiating warmth. Bram, the young vampire, stares back, shock and disbelief etched on his face. Overwhelmed with emotion, Bram seizes Leaf, shouting that friendship is absolutely fine. Tears of joy stream down his face as he declares it feels like a dream, while Leaf celebrates. From the sidelines, a smiling Miss Mercury watches the touching beginning of their friendship. Brams wipes his tears, completely taken aback by this unexpected kindness. Ms. Mercury's expression shifts to serious as she catches wind of recent abduction rumors. The night cityscape reveals a troubling trend. Young women are being targeted. The only clue left at the crime scenes is a blood stain she discovers. In a shadowy alley, a woman's feet dash away in desperation. She collapses against a wall, begging her unseen pursuer to halt. A dark figure cloaked in menace approaches the fallen woman with swift intent. The scene shifts to a quiet, eerie pond, hinting at the aftermath of the assault. Panting in fear, the woman pleads for her assailant to keep their distance. Beneath a dark hood, the attacker reveals a wide, sinister grin. Her final scream of despair pierces the night sky. Back at the Adventurers Guild, Ms. Mercury notices a relevant notice on the board. She explains to a curious Brams that this is the Guild's request board. All available quests, she elaborates, are posted here for adventurers to view. Eagerly, Leaf volunteers to assist her with the request she's considering. Ms. Mercury accepts his offer, but cautions that the task may prove challenging. She turns to Brams, inquiring if he intends to help investigate the abductions. Brams nervously explains he's late because they had already arranged to meet. He sinks into despair, berating himself for making his new friend wait. Ms. Mercury dryly comments on Bram's amusingly dramatic and self-critical apology. The group gathers to discuss the specifics of the search request. Holding a flyer, she identifies the missing individual as 20-year-old Humile Patrielli. The details are grim. She disappeared near a bar, leaving only a bloodstain. Brams questions how she plans to locate the woman with so little information. Ms. Mercury confidently slaps her thigh, declaring she'll investigate on foot. She rallies the group, urging them to claim the reward, with Leaf cheering her on. The cawing of crows overhead casts a foreboding shadow over their mission. After a while, Miss Mercury angrily scolds her companions for their foolishness. The two boys sheepishly admit they were too frightened or unsure how to proceed. With her hands on her hips, she calls them both useless. Leaf interrupts her tirade, announcing that he actually found something significant. Her demeanor shifts as she reveals they have a crucial witness to interview. The group visits the witness, who recounts being attacked the night before. When pressed for details, the woman admits she can't recall the attacker's face. She explains that the darkness and her fear clouded her memory of the incident. Ms. Mercury presses on, noting that all the other victims remain missing. The woman clutches her robe, confessing she doesn't know how she escaped. In a flashback, she remembers a strange light appearing in the empty alley. She repeats what the vigilante Core told her. Her escape was a miracle. Ms. Mercury listens closely, relieved that the witness is safe. The woman reveals a crucial clue, believing her beast blood ancestry saved her. The mention of beast blood makes Ms. Mercury's eyes widen in realization. Her mind races, connecting the new information with existing facts. Reviewing the case files, Ms. Mercury confirms her dawning suspicion. The reports reveal a clear pattern. All the other victims were purely human. Mercury, gripping a report, deduces that the attacker's choice of targets is deliberate. The witness, resting in bed, questions why only women are being targeted. A close-up reveals the witness's forearm, tightly bound in bandages. Mercury inquires about the reason behind the young woman's bandaged arm. The witness brushes off her injury, claiming it's just a minor cut. Kuro interjects, cautioning that even small injuries can pose serious risks. The taken-aback woman asks the stranger to introduce himself. Kuro introduces himself as a healer and requests to remove the bandage. As he inspects the arm, he observes signs of slight infection. Mercury's heart races as Kuro declares he needs to clean out the pus first. She watches him prepare to disinfect the wound, a bead of sweat forming. Kuro carefully treats the injury, revealing what resembles vampire scratch marks. Later that night, a full moon casts its glow over the city rooftops. In a room, Kuro sleeps soundly, snoring with his mouth agape. Mercury hovers over his bed, her boots making no sound on the floor. She meets Brahms in a shadowy alley where he questions her late summons. Her face is serious as she prepares to confront him with her suspicions. She prefaces her inquiry, apologizing if her theory turns out to be wrong. Standing before him, she demands he reveal the complete truth. Leaning in, she quietly implores him to be truthful. Her eyes narrow as she gears up to ask a pointed, accusatory question. She questions him about his actions from the night before. Bram stands in the narrow alley, now under her intense scrutiny. Her unwavering gaze fixes on him as she addresses him with a single word. Brahms, in pained disbelief, asks if she truly suspects him as the culprit. Mercury challenges him to refute the accusation if it's false. She reveals she witnessed the victim's injury, resembling a vampire's bite. She lays out her logic, pointing out vampires' known attraction to human females. Brahms flinches, realizing she views him just like everyone else does. His face darkens as he laments being the one always blamed. Frustrated, he stomps his foot, calling himself a worthless monster. Mercury attempts to soothe him, insisting she's not merely accusing him. He interrupts, declaring he's fed up with her attempts to trust him. As rain begins to fall, Mercury stands by the window, her thoughts unfinished. A figure crashes through the window, scattering glass and her spectacles. Stunned, Mercury covers her mouth, her eyes wide in shock and confusion. A smirking attacker with sharp fangs looms over her, confirming her worst fears. Bram stares at the chaos, bewildered by the sudden shift in events. He glances up at a rooftop where the figure repeats a familiar mocking phrase. The attacker, Bram's sister, holds a captive Mercury against the full moon. Bram's sister looks down, remarking again on her brother's unchanged nature. Brahms looks up in shock as his sister calls him her foolish little brother. From the rooftop high above, his sister gazes down at him in the alley. Mercury realizes in horror that this woman is the real culprit. She struggles against an unyielding grip, stunned by the immense strength. Bram's sister coldly warns the human woman not to even think about fighting back. With a vicious bite, she sinks her fangs into Mercury's neck. Bram cries out in horror as drops of blood splatter onto the alley floor. The sister holds the now limp Mercury, noting that dawn is drawing near. She bids her brother farewell before vanishing into the night with her captive. Left in the alley, Brahms is filled with horror, questioning the events that just unfolded. He gazes at the sprawling city, feeling adrift and uncertain about his next move. In a room adorned with leaves, he hears the shocking confirmation of the news. Brahms admits that his sister was the kidnapper, shouldering all the blame. Crushed by guilt, he mourns his helplessness as Ms. Mercury is taken away. As he grips his head in despair, Leaf comforts him, insisting it's not his fault. Leaf calmly proposes they track down Brahms' sister to save their friend. Trembling with fear, Brahms recoils from the suggestion, claiming it's impossible. He asserts that he can't possibly confront his powerful older sister. Across from Leaf, he starts detailing her strict demeanor and elite reputation. With pain in his voice, Brahms cries out that he and his sister belong to different worlds. His hands shake as he remembers her arrogance and her impossible standards. He recounts her violent history, where she overpowered villagers he had defended. Once Brahms finishes his frantic outburst, Leaf stands, startling him into silence. With a slight grin, Leaf notes Brahms' evident passion when it comes to his sister. He tells a shocked Brahms that he doubts his friend truly harbors hatred for her. A memory surfaces of Mercury telling young Brahms he would be resented for his lineage. She had encouraged him to fight back and claim his own place in the world. Young Brahms had wept, confessing that hurting others also inflicted pain on him. His sister figure had raised her hand, frustrated by his gentle spirit. She had asked if he understood why she took in a parentless, mixed-blood vampire. Leaning in, she revealed it was because she admired his compassionate nature. Back in the present, Brahms clenches his fists, acknowledging his sister's strictness. He insists with fierce determination that she isn't an evil person. He argues there must be a reason behind her actions. She isn't reckless. Leaf places a comforting hand on his shoulder, catching him off guard. He explains that Miss Mercury has also become like an older sister to him. Looking at Brahms with empathy, he suggests they rescue their sisters together. Moved by the offer of partnership, Brahms agrees with tears in his eyes. Yet he expresses doubt, pointing out they have no leads on their captured friends. Leaf confidently states they will simply have to investigate on foot. The two friends set off, navigating through the lively city streets. They reach a sealed-off crime scene with Brahms looking on anxiously. At a table, Leaf points to a map, discussing their findings with Brahms. They stroll down a quiet alley, nearing the last crime scene on their list. Leaf raises a glass vial, ready to apply a chemical reagent to a clue. Brahms watches intently, asking if his friend has uncovered something. While analyzing the evidence, Leaf notes that acid vampires are usually active during the day. Brahms is taken aback when Leaf claims he's starting to see the bigger picture. Rising from his work, Leaf reveals he found a common element at every scene. He holds up a small vial, identifying the recurring clue as drug components. He explains that it's an old drug needing a concealed location for the victims. Brahms grasps the implication, which Leaf confirms is likely an abandoned hospital. The young vampire frets about the challenge of locating such a place in the capital. With a confident grin, Leaf assures him that he already has a plan. They arrive at the Grand Royal Capitol Medical Building as Leaf shares his strategy. In the hallway of the building, footsteps echo as they approach. A flamboyant man strides in, instructing others to clear the way for Director Bacchus. He proudly announces himself as the youngest representative director in the story. The director's confident demeanor shifts to utter shock upon seeing them. Bacchus greets Leaf with warmth, expressing his delight at their reunion. Leaf joyfully introduces Bacchus, who proudly boasts about their friendly rivalry. Brahms is completely taken aback by the revelation that Leaf knows the royal court doctor. Noticing Leaf's humble pride, Brahms wonders if he might be an extraordinary person. After serving snacks, Bacchus gets straight to the point, asking what they require. Leaf directly requests details about the abandoned hospitals in the capital. Initially, Bacchus is confused, claiming he has never heard of such a place. A sudden realization hits him, and he thinks he might actually know something. He remembers a hospital that was abandoned after a fire and another that closed due to a medical mishap. Leaf spreads out a large city map, asking Bacchus to mark the relevant locations. While marking the map, Bacchus notices other symbols and inquires about them. Leaf clarifies that the symbols represent the crime scenes from the recent abductions. Suddenly enlightened, Bacchus exclaims that he now comprehends the situation. Leaf turns to Brahms, urging him to examine the map closely. Bacchus points to the map, indicating that the kidnapper's base is likely at the center. He identifies the site as the imposing, abandoned Doctors Guild Balazim. Before the massive structure, Leaf and Brahms brace themselves for the upcoming mission. Brahms gazes up at the moonlit guild, vowing to rescue Ms. Mercury soon. Inside, a rundown room is revealed, with tattered curtains framing a window. A bewildered Mercury awakens, discovering she is chained to a bed in this strange room. She feels a sharp pain in her wrist as she struggles against the heavy chain. Her memory floods back, recalling her abduction by the true mastermind behind the crimes. A calm voice addresses Mercury by name, noting that she is finally awake. Mercury looks up in shock, recognizing her captor as Brahms' older sister, Sinal. Her eyes widen in disbelief and confusion at the unexpected sight before her. Sinal calmly reassures her not to be alarmed, explaining they just conducted a brief checkup. An angry Mercury demands to know the reason for her situation and her whereabouts. Her captor simply tells her to relax, her tone disturbingly calm. Sinal reveals their location, assuring Mercury that she will not come to harm. Furious, Mercury counters this, accusing Sinal of intending to use her for blood. Sinal dismisses the notion of drinking human blood as an archaic practice. She apologizes for her rough treatment, explaining it was to avoid causing a scene. Mercury is left perplexed by her captor's oddly polite and composed demeanor. She struggles internally, having anticipated the kidnapper to be a vile person. The captive finds her captor's calm presence almost unsettling and unexpected. A sudden noise from the doorway startles chained Mercury, drawing her focus. A large man bursts in, boisterously announcing that it's time for a medical examination. Sign all greets the man as Sheridan, while Mercury demands to know his identity. Terrified, Mercury asks what he means by a medical examination. Sheridan leans closer, creepily suggesting they need to ensure her health. The sound of a door closing behind him diverts his attention from his captive. Send all census visitors outside, preparing to give them a warm welcome. Before departing, she sternly warns Sheridan not to harm their precious test subject. Sheridan cheerfully agrees, promising to keep his word. Content with his response, Sinnel turns and exits the room with a simple farewell. Once she leaves, Sheridan shifts his full attention back to the captive Mercury. He approaches the chained woman, who gazes up at him with deep apprehension. Mercury watches him with wide, fearful eyes as he draws nearer to the bed. Leaning in, Sheridan whispers with a lecherous glint that he will be very kind. He looms over the terrified Mercury, declaring it's time to indulge in his own utopia. A shrill scream pierces the air, making a character's eyes widen in shock. Within the deserted hospital, Leaf and Brahms jump at the frantic cry. Horrified, Brahms realizes the voice belongs to their kidnapped friend, Miss Mercury. Without hesitation, Leaf races up the grand staircase towards the noise. Brahms suddenly halts on the stairs, forcing Leaf to stop and look back. Concerned, Leaf glances at his friend, asking what's the matter. In an instant, a figure appears, blocking Brahms from proceeding. Sheridan greets her foolish brother with a patronizing smile. Brahms stares at his older sister, her name escaping his lips in disbelief. Filled with betrayal, he demands to know how she could be involved. He begs her to stop, insisting this cruel side isn't who she truly is. Sheridan merely smirks, intrigued by her brother's heartfelt plea. Her amusement fades, replaced by rage as she questions his nerve to command her. A terrifying dark energy erupts from her, stunning both Leaf and Brahms. Leaf watches closely, recognizing the immense power radiating from his friend's sister. Sheridan's face darkens with menace, showcasing her formidable strength. She raises 3 fingers, giving her foolish brother a brief countdown. With a chilling stare, she orders him to plead for her forgiveness now. He grasps the gravity of the threat. Failure means eternal silence. As Brahms faces his sister down the long hallway, he hears her start the countdown. When the last number is called, Brahms clenches his fist defiantly. Memories flash of Leaf urging him to help rescue their sisters together. Deciding quickly, Brahms tells Leaf to go and ensure Ms. Mercury's safety. With newfound determination, he vows to confront his sister alone. Leaf glances at his friend, a blush revealing his trust and surprise. He agrees and continues sprinting up the stairs, leaving Brahms to his fate. Brahms turns back to his sister, bracing for the inevitable clash. He comments on her stubbornness, realizing that fighting is his only choice. Channeling dark energy, he knows this is the only path left for him. Wielding a large scythe topped with a skull, he demands an explanation for her actions. Sheridan reclines mockingly, taunting her brother with playful jabs. The 2 vampire siblings stand ready for battle in the ruined hall. Brahms laments that the day has arrived for them to fight like this. Sheridan, however, cruelly calls their destined confrontation a blessing. She steps forward, reminding him not to overlook something crucial. In a blur, she dashes across the floor with astonishing speed. She reminds him of her superior strength as they clash. Their weapons collide in a flurry, the sound reverberating through the hall. Sheridan lets out a smug laugh, unimpressed by her brother's attempts. Brahms is taken aback as she closes the gap between them in an instant. He jumps back, trying to create distance as she intensifies her assault. She mocks his evasive tactics, pointing out his talent for fleeing. Gripping her scythe tightly, she derides him as a coward. Their blades clash again with a resounding clang, sparks flying. She moves with blinding speed, preparing to unleash a devastating strike. Dodging his attack, she dismisses his effort as far too slow. A powerful kick connects, sending him hurtling across the ruined chamber. Standing over him, she sneers, asking if that was all he could muster. Brahms lies defeated, enveloped in a cloud of dust and debris. From within the haze, his defiant voice proclaims it's not over yet. Sheridan swoops down from above, launching a sudden and fierce aerial assault. With a piercing gaze, she verifies her target is right beneath her. Brahms' expression shifts to shock as his sister charges at him. A raw scream of pain and effort escapes him from the unexpected strike. Sheridan coldly dismisses her brother's abilities, labeling him as weak. She lands with poise, asserting that a true vampire must possess greater strength. Bram is taken aback by her assault, his face twisted in furious disbelief. He snaps back, fed up with her patronizing and repetitive lectures. His sister's eyes widen in shock, realizing he has set a trap. Bram shouts with determination, claiming he has always seen through her tough act. He insists she's merely pretending to be strong even now. Channeling his energy, he unleashes his Fright Night attack, a surge of power. Amid the chaos, he begs his sister to finally trust him. Inside, Leaf delivers a fierce flying kick, striking the vile Dr. Sheridan. Mercury, bound and helpless, recognizes her savior with tearful shock and relief. As Leaf frees her, she grimly vows to fight until her last breath. Now liberated, Mercury angrily demands Leaf to take down the pervert for her. The doctor warns Leaf not to underestimate him, his demeanor turning serious. Throwing off his coat, he pledges to reveal his true, formidable power. Leaf and Mercury prepare as the doctor dares them to engage. Dr. Bellows announces he will now unleash his astonishing ultimate technique. He attacks by aggressively tickling Leaf, who cries out from the bizarre assault. The doctor mockingly praises Leaf's nipples as the young man slumps, weakened. A massive piece of debris crashes down, barely missing the distracted doctor. Mercury quips that this isn't the right moment to develop a new fetish. Leaf inquires about the other victims, whom Mercury believes are imprisoned nearby. She urgently insists they must stop Sheridan, revealing the doctor as the mastermind. Leaf watches, bewildered by this sudden and shocking disclosure. Mercury explains how the doctor easily manipulated the noble yet naive Sheridan. She reveals that he coerced Sheridan into abducting all those women. The doctor confirms he struck a deal with Sheridan to gather human females. Leaf processes this, questioning what kind of drug was promised in the arrangement. The doctor discloses it was a drug that would grant vampires resistance to sunlight. He boasts that such a miraculous cure had never been developed before. With a wide, mocking grin, he declares the entire promise utterly absurd. Mercury glares at the doctor, furious over his cruel and heartless deceit. Leaf angrily asserts that a fraud like him could never create such a thing. With a powerful strike, Leaf punches the doctor, knocking him out cold. Standing over the vanquished man, he declares that insults to doctors are unforgivable. Hearing the chaos outside, Mercury insists they must rush back to the siblings. The devastation from the fight is immense, prompting an observer to want to intervene. Sheridan approaches Brahms, acknowledging that he has indeed become stronger. However, she declares that his progress ends here, readying her lethal scythe. In the ruined courtyard, she tells the defeated Brahms that this is his limit. Bram looks down, his face a mask of fatigue and utter despair. From a balcony, Mercury witnesses his plight and urges Leaf to save him. She is taken aback when Leaf calmly places a reassuring hand on her shoulder. She gazes at Leaf, questioning his calm demeanor in this critical moment. On the battlefield, Bram leans against the rubble, completely ready to surrender. He grits his teeth, resigning himself to what he perceives as his failure. Feeling defeated, Brahms thinks that people like him, who are worthless, will never accomplish anything. He laments his failure to stop the very person who once offered him refuge. Amidst the debris, he resigns himself to the label of a complete failure. From an upper balcony, Leaf passionately shouts, urging Brahms to hold on. Brahms turns, hearing his friend's voice encouraging him to have more faith. Leaf insists that Brahms is not weak and completely misjudges his own worth. In shock, Brahms hears that his kindness is actually a sign of strength. With a firm grip on the railing, Leaf expresses his unwavering belief in Brahms. He states with absolute certainty that he believes Brahms can triumph. A close-up reveals the profound shock and flicker of hope in Brahms's eyes. Sheridan watches Leaf, noting his unchanging, ever-supportive nature. She observes him cheering for her brother, a hint of annoyance creeping in. With a wry smirk, she quips that Brahms has finally found some friends. Her expression hardens as she offers him one last chance to say goodbye. Raising her scythe, she explains this is to ensure he has no regrets. From above, Ms. Mercury calls out Sheridan's name, alarmed by the threat. Brahms, filled with emotion, begins to respond to his sister's challenge. He glances at his friends, grateful for Leaf's acceptance. Turning back to Sheridan, he declares that this newfound friendship means everything. His clothes tattered, he vows to elevate his game and not let anyone down. A fierce determination ignites in his eyes as he pledges to defeat her. Sheridan's expression flickers with a mix of amusement and respect for his resolve. Recognizing his courage, she charges forward to meet his sudden attack. Brahms unleashes a powerful upward strike, roaring the name of his attack, Nosferatu. A memory flashes of a younger, terrified Brahms crying out in fear. The flashback reveals his sister screaming, her face twisted in rage or pain. In the memory, Brahms's eyes widen with terror as his sister bellows. A close-up captures the intense, almost pained emotion in Sheridan's gaze. The brief flashback shows young Brahms calling out to his sister in distress. In the present, Brahms releases a furious, fanged roar of his own. The force of his strike sends Sheridan flying, dislodging a skull ornament from her hair. Another memory surfaces, where Sheridan tells Brahms she took him in for his kindness. The impact of the blow shatters a massive stone pillar behind her. With a faint, proud smile, she acknowledges how much stronger her brother has grown. Sheridan closes her eyes, accepting her defeat as the ground trembles beneath her. Brahms stands over his fallen sister, proclaiming his victory with a powerful slam. With an intense gaze, he demands that she now fulfill her promise to him. Sheridan looks away, her expression somber as she prepares to unveil the truth. Amidst the ruins, Brahms insists she reveal everything about her actions. She begins her tale, her voice heavy with the burden of her past. Sheridan explains that vampires cannot function during daylight due to the sun. She describes this vulnerability as a cruel fate that complicates daily life. Under the moonlight, she recounts the struggles and the world's denial of their existence. She reveals that in her desperation, a manipulative man approached her. Admitting her own frailty, she confesses she fell for his deceitful schemes. Brahms looks horrified, unable to accept that she could be at fault. He recalls his own past, tasked with finding food due to his son's defiance. He admits he failed, was blamed, and ultimately fled from his responsibilities. Overwhelmed with guilt, he shouts that he alone is to blame for everything. Sheridan looks down sadly, revealing there was only one thing she ever wished for. On a bustling street, Sheridan confides in Brahms that all she ever wanted was a simple life. She expresses regret, feeling unworthy of the greatness he sees in her. Brahms gazes at his sister, his face a blend of shock and sorrow. Out of nowhere, Leaf materializes, illuminated by a radiant light from above. Both Brahms and his sister are taken aback by Leaf's sudden appearance. The bright light glimmers off a shattered window in the dilapidated building. Leaf approaches Sheridan, gently grasping her hand to provide a remedy. Brahms questions if this is a dream as the light surrounds his kneeling sister. Leaf raises a compact, explaining he's applying a unique sunscreen. With a warm grin, he assures her this will enable a normal life. Sheridan stares in disbelief, struggling to comprehend the sudden change. Brahms stands off to the side, his face a portrait of astonishment. The magical sunscreen drips from the ornate compact onto the fractured floor. Overwhelmed with emotion, she embraces Leaf from behind, sobbing her thanks. Later, the scene transitions to the outside of a city atelier. Ms. Mercury rejoices, announcing her business is back on track and well compensated. At a bar, Leaf panics as he witnesses his mentor indulging in celebratory drinks. The door creaks open as Leaf slips away from the chaotic atmosphere. Brahms stands at the entrance, now dressed in formal attire, looking remorseful. He presents Miss Mercury with a gift, hoping to make amends for the trouble. Ms. Mercury dismisses it, attributing the whole affair to a quack doctor. She mentions that Sheridan is eager to atone for her past actions. Noticing a hidden agenda, Ms. Mercury inquires about Brahms' true purpose. Brahms turns to Leaf, revealing he has a significant request for him. He bows deeply, formally requesting to join Leaf's party. Brahms explains that Leaf saved both him and his sister. With passion, he expresses his strong desire to repay this immense debt. He humbly admits he might bring more trouble in the future. Before he can finish, Leaf throws his arms wide in sheer joy. His sudden exuberance causes a loud crash as a shelf tumbles. Leaf pulls a blushing Brahms into a tight, joyful embrace, accepting his request. He celebrates their new trio as Ms. Mercury watches, amused. In a forest, two small squirrel-like creatures chatter on a log. A gloved hand gently strokes one of the adorable creatures as it nibbles. The hand belongs to Senelevi, who admits feeling envious of their bond. A professional woman in a business suit arrives at an inn. The innkeeper, Lady Merline's granddaughter, welcomes the woman at the entrance. Identifying herself as a member of the business guild, the visitor requests leave. She explains she was informed he would be staying here. The innkeeper confirms Leaf is a guest, but mentions he is currently out. The visitor decides to depart, stating she will return another time. Meanwhile, Leaf is seen staring at a shop sign, utterly confused. He strolls down a beautifully decorated cobblestone alley, lost in thought. He also wonders where his companion Brams has vanished to. Carrying a baguette, he walks through the narrow, unfamiliar street. Suddenly, an unexpected sight catches his attention nearby. In a park, he spots the lovely Sen laughing as a creature tickles her. Peeking from behind a corner, Leaf is instantly smitten, though invisible. He thinks to himself how adorable she is as birds flutter by. His moment of admiration is interrupted by birds pecking at his bread. As he strolls through the city, Leaf desperately guards a baguette from a swarm of hungry birds. He stumbles and hits the ground, where the birds quickly gather and a voice gently scolds them. A close-up shows the warm, smiling face of the young woman who addressed the birds. Leaning over him, the woman named Olive kindly inquires if he's all right after his tumble. Leaf gazes up at her, his cheeks flushed and eyes wide, utterly enchanted. Now seated by a fountain, Sen shares her thoughts, likening the bewildering royal capital to a labyrinth. Next to her on the bench, Lee expresses his relief that someone finally understands his feelings of confusion. Surrounded by birds, Sen reveals she hails from the countryside and often feels lost. She inquires about his life prior to arriving in the capital, and he shares he was a healer with a pharmacy. Sen admires his profession, feeling she hasn't achieved anything comparable herself. With a somber expression, Leaf confesses that his healing career ultimately fell short. After hearing his admission, Sen gazes at him thoughtfully, her sympathy evident. Cuddling a small creature, she curiously asks about the specific roles and skills of a healer. They sit together on the bench, her holding the little animal as their conversation flows. Playfully peeking from behind her pet, she asks if he can tell different herbs apart. Leaf explains that distinguishing herbs is quite easy for him. He then confidently claims he has an even better technique for gathering them. Rising from the bench, he tells a curious Sen to watch his demonstration. He clasps his hands together, starting a chant to summon all his beloved herbs. In the park's center, he raises his arm dramatically, expecting the plants to respond. When nothing occurs, he flails his arms in a flustered panic, bewildered by the silence. Realization dawns on him, and he blushes, remembering there are no wild herbs in a park. Sen finds his failed attempt charming, bursting into laughter and calling him amusing. Blushing, Leaf insists he genuinely has the ability, and she reassures him of her belief. She formally introduces herself as Sen Olive and asks for his name in return. With a shy expression, he tells her his name is Leaf. As they part, she gently taps his cheek, thanking him for the time they shared. Back at their inn, a dazed Leaf is jolted back to reality by his looming, furious friend, Bram. Bram leans in, shouting about how worried he was that Leaf had been kidnapped. His expression shifts to one of shock as he realizes something crucial is missing. He panics, frantically asking what happened to Miss Mercury's baguette, fearing trouble. Later at the Adventurers Guild, a despondent Bram mourns his failures while Leaf notices someone approaching. Nearby adventurers whisper, curious about why a noble's daughter is visiting the guild. The crowd parts as the high-ranking adventurer, Priscilla, strides directly toward Leaf and Bram. Spotting Leaf, Priscilla's face brightens with joy as she calls out his name. She rushes forward, colliding with a stunned Leaf and enveloping him in a hug. Completely flustered by the sudden embrace, Leaf can only stare as Priscilla expresses her delight. Clinging to him tightly, she confesses she has thought of him every single day. With his face pressed against her chest, a surprised Leaf can only mumble her name. From the sidelines, Bram and other adventurers grumble jealously about the fortunate F-rank adventurer. In a meeting room, Priscilla explains to Leaf and Bram that she requires their assistance. Bram reacts with alarm as she reveals that a magic beast has escaped within the capital. He expresses his fear, recalling that magic beasts are known to be incredibly powerful. Priscilla calmly clarifies that this particular beast is gentle and not a significant threat. She adds that her mother simply refers to the large, fluffy creature as a kitty. Bram doubts that F-ranked adventurers like them can participate in a secret mission. The guild receptionist, Miss Nina, leans over to a worried Bram, telling him not to fret. With a sly grin, she brushes off his concerns, confirming they are merely searching for a cat. She then announces that she has found the ideal newcomer to help them with the quest. Senliv is introduced as a talented F-rank tamer, much to Leaf's astonishment. At the Adventurers Guild, Nina asks if Leaf meets the new girl. The trio stands together as Nina shares her grasp of the situation. A blushing Leaf expresses gratitude to Sen for their earlier chat in the park. With a bright smile, Sen shares her joy at seeing him once more. Leaf visibly flusters under Sen's charming and kind demeanor. Nina stutters, admitting she feels the same way about him. Priscilla watches, puffing her cheeks in a clear display of annoyance. Nina leans in to tease a nervous Leaf about his swift romantic advances. Determined to reclaim Leaf, Priscilla asserts he must belong to her. The high-ranking adventurer's face shows clear irritation as she pouts again. She directly confronts Leaf, demanding to know why he chases other women. Priscilla emotionally reminds him of her significant efforts to win his heart. As Leaf observes, Priscilla starts to articulate her simple wish. She confesses she just wanted to be affectionate with him too. Her candid admission leaves Leaf utterly stunned and sweating with anxiety. Priscilla glares fiercely, demanding to know which girl he truly prefers. Heart racing, Leaf stutters, unable to respond to her inquiry. Nina leans in again, playfully commenting on Leaf's newfound popularity. Sen joins the fray, also asking Leaf to pick who he likes. She leans in close to Leaf, her heart racing with anticipation. Bram observes the chaotic scene, muttering about Leaf's incredible luck. The narration confirms a new party has formed to search for a kitty. Leaf attempts to rally the group, but Bram expresses serious concerns. As they walk, Sen tells Priscilla she's too close to Leaf. Priscilla quickly retorts that Sen is also uncomfortably near him. Caught between them, Leaf weakly denies being too close to either. He panics, wondering how he ended up in this tangled mess. Behind them, Bram looks utterly drained by the ongoing squabbling. Sen reports that her wolf companion has found no sign of the cat. Leaf takes note of the peculiar glowing organisms in the Hikarino forest. He voices his worries about the aggressive monsters rumored to lurk nearby. Priscilla reassures him, but Bram remains anxious despite her confidence. His fears come true as large, pig-like monsters suddenly emerge. Leaf gasps in shock, identifying the creatures as young orcs. While Leaf tries to maintain his composure, Priscilla curiously calls them piggies. Sen explains that young orcs are typically docile unless provoked. An orc snorts angrily, immediately contradicting her assessment. Bram moves to shield Priscilla, but she firmly halts his advance. She stands tall, declaring her intent to fight alongside them. Priscilla reveals she has been studying magic and is much stronger now. Hearing her determination, Bram looks at her with a proud, supportive smile. The newly formed party stands united, prepared to confront the orc group. In a different scene, adventurers admit they went too far in a fight. Bram passionately rallies his new friends for their first official battle. As Leaf charges ahead, he is immediately struck by a fiery explosion. The powerful blast sends him flying back, his coat starting to smolder. He frantically pats at the flames, shouting about the intense burning heat. The surprise attack leaves him dazed, his clothes slightly scorched. He looks up from the ground to see a massive orc foot descending. His face twists in sheer terror as he realizes his impending doom. Brams watches in despair as Leaf cries out for help, trapped by young orcs. Beneath the full moon, a vast, foreboding forest looms ominously. A campfire flickers brightly, casting warmth and light into the surrounding darkness. Filled with shame, Brams lowers his gaze and offers a heartfelt apology. He mourns his shortcomings, wishing to emulate Ariel, while Leaf observes his familiar self-pity. Priscilla gently comforts a downcast Brams, assuring him that he isn't to blame. With a blush, Priscilla secretly thinks that Leaf's intense gaze is solely for her. To boost their morale, Brams presents a meal as a gesture of apology. He serves a perfectly grilled steak from the young orcs, adorned with herbs. Sen expresses surprise at the idea of eating monster meat, while Brams clarifies its safety. Leaf eagerly gets ready to sample the dish Brams prepared, catching him off guard. With his cheeks stuffed, Leaf savors the delightful taste of the orc steak. Beneath the stars, Sen tells Leaf she's pleased he enjoys the delicious meal. Brams grips a fork, poised to take his own bite of the food. He takes a mouthful, his face lighting up with enjoyment. With his mouth full, Brams exclaims just how fantastic the food is. Brams eagerly asks for seconds while his friends chuckle at his appetite. Priscilla observes with a warm smile as Brams coughs and reaches for water. Leaf and Brams share a moment of friendship around the fire. Sen beams, relishing the joyful atmosphere of their shared meal. A blushing Leaf watches, moved by the group's blossoming camaraderie. Leaf observes his friends, a sudden realization dawning on him. Brams gazes into the distance, experiencing a profound moment of clarity. He contemplates his wish to be like his master and form a party. He reflects on the simple pleasures of traveling, battling, and laughing together. Gazing at his friends under the starry sky, he concludes this is what a true party feels like. With a bright, blushing smile, Brams admits he's never had this much fun. Leaf looks on with a gentle, knowing expression. Sen observes Brahms with a kind, understanding smile. Priscilla is visibly touched, her cheeks flushed with affection. Brahms realizes he wants to cherish these joyful moments with his friends. He humbly brushes off his feelings as the simple wish of a country boy. Priscilla's eyes widen, her heart captivated by his sincere words. Clasping her hands, she finds him both charming and dashing. Under the moonlight, she asks Brahms to sleep beside her, leaving him speechless. A large, imposing structure looms against a dark, cloudy sky. A bandaged hand waves in greeting as someone cheerfully inquires about everyone's well-being. Ribbon Menhel holds up a sign that shows her boredom and desire to return home. Ariel Champ Road senses that things have turned chaotic and complicated. Myrtle Gorgon provocatively questions whether they will receive compensation for their troubles. Dr. Isidine silently watches the unfolding drama from behind his sunglasses. Ariel, with a dragon kanji on his back, inquires about the day's plans. In a grand hall, the S-ranks are seated, informed of an emergency. The serious Jasmine Ku announces the start of the S-rank meeting. The S-ranks gather around the large table, anticipating the emergency briefing. With a serious expression, second seat Jasmine Ku officially opens the meeting. A portrait reveals the composed and graceful eighth seat, Diane Fangram. The cool and collected seventh seat, Dr. Isidine, is introduced. A close-up showcases the alluring and confident fifth seat, Myrtle Gorgon. The profile of the determined sixth seat, Ariel Champ Road, is displayed. Fujiwara, occupying the ninth seat, makes his entrance. His hands are tightly wrapped in bandages. The fourth seat, Ribbon Menhel, quietly clutches her patched-up teddy bear. From his position, the chairman disapprovingly notes the absence of two members. Confidently seated, the Pompadour man has Myrtle Gorgon lounging behind him. With a sidelong glance, Ribbon Menhel observes the proceedings, her contempt barely concealed. The Afro healer scans the room from his seat, his sunglasses glinting. Fujiwara lifts a bandaged hand, casually greeting his fellow heroes. With a broad smile, he suggests they set aside their worries and discuss dinner. He cheerfully proposes a dish of poisonous mushroom gratin for everyone. Fujiwara wonders why Ariel is giving him such a frosty reception after their long absence. Ribbon Menhel launches into a scathing critique of Ariel's outdated fashion and unpleasant demeanor. Ariel turns, annoyance evident, and asks what Ribbon just said about him. Myrtle Gorgon snaps back, pointing out that Ribbon has no right to judge anyone's attire. With a sly grin, she jests that Ribbon's staring indicates her interest. Myrtle provocatively offers to show Ribbon her treasures if the price is right. Ribbon retorts angrily, calling Myrtle a mad wench for her comments. She furiously dismisses Myrtle as a masochistic pig with no authority to speak. An authoritative voice interjects, stating that the squabbling has gone on long enough. The Afro healer urges his peers to settle down, reminding them of their maturity. He calmly explains that humans need 6 seconds to cool off emotionally. The Pompadour man erupts, telling the healer to stop pretending to know everything. Myrtle slams her hand on the table, joining the escalating argument. The Pompadour man dares the healer, asking if he wants to take this outside. A close-up reveals the Afro healer's sunglasses as he prepares to respond. The Pompadour man's eyes narrow in anger, bracing for a physical confrontation. Myrtle observes the standoff with a fierce, aggressive glare, eager for a brawl. Fujiwara cheers them on while Ribbon holds up a sign calling them all idiots. The chairman taps the table, sharply commanding the arguing members to take their seats. From her position at the head, she sternly instructs everyone to be quiet. A palpable wave of authority radiates from her, stunning the unruly heroes. The once boisterous members now sit in tense, submissive silence under her gaze. She acknowledges the immense pressure she exudes to command the room's focus. She warns that the next person to step out of line will face her fury. Jill Vigil calmly redirects the meeting, stating they have no time for nonsense. The chairman concurs, revealing they are facing a critical issue regarding the World Tree. She explains that the tree's crucial role as the source of mana is now in question. The Afro healer confirms this, noting an increase in patients suffering from magic deficiency. She states they have a hypothesis, gesturing as Ribbon asks if they know the cause. The Pompadour man twitches, a look of sudden realization crossing his face. He jumps to his feet, questioning if the demons could be responsible for the crisis. The chairman confirms that reports of suspicious demonic activity have emerged recently. Fujiwara brightly suggests that simply fixing the World Tree will resolve everything. The pompadour man scolds him, calling him a fool for such a simplistic perspective. The chairman clarifies that the tree's location is a secret known only to Lord Asclepius. She concludes that with the healer absent, they have no means of locating it. A candelabra is shown as she summarizes the essence of their challenging situation. With a decisive tone, she announces she has two crucial missions for the S ranks. Gilles Vigile accurately outlines their tasks: locate the tree and eliminate any demons. The pompadour man volunteers for the restoration, while the Afro healer accepts the mission. Fujiwara gives an enthusiastic thumbs up as Ribbon confirms her participation with a sign. A woman with dark skin accepts the perilous task, but only if she's compensated. With a firm stride, the conclusive decision regarding the vital mission is announced. The chairman's stare is piercing as she hands over the world's fate to them. Driven by the allure of SS rank, the band of heroes strides forward with determination. As they exit the hall, one man turns back to the chairman with a lingering question. The Afro healer voices his concerns, confessing that healing the world tree is too daunting alone. A self-assured man sporting a pompadour offers to connect them with the ideal young aide. As they walk away, the chairman and her ally share a quiet, knowing chuckle about their scheme. Their mutual thoughts are laid bare, revealing they had the same plan all along. A disheartened noir Stardia, leaves tangled in his hair, mourns the day's failures. His two friends propose they should wrap things up as dust settles over the city. While traversing an alley, Noir abruptly halts his companions, sensing a presence behind them. Now alone, he cautiously advances down the narrow cobblestone lane, vigilant of his surroundings. From above, he is seen maneuvering through the deserted street, his demeanor tense. His pace abruptly stops on the stones, confirming he is not by himself. Facing the vacant alley, he demands that his hidden pursuer show themselves. He challenges the shadows, inquiring what the person trailing him desires. A tall, ominous figure cloaked in darkness steps out from the shadows. Noir's gaze sharpens with suspicion as he observes the enigmatic figure approach. He firmly requests the cloaked stranger to reveal their identity. The figure identifies himself as Satanakia, one of the feared 6 generals. His face, now visible, burns with fury as he vows to take Noir's life today.